Talking about Bill Cosby today. Another inspirational episode. What an incredible man. One of the greatest comics of all time, a rags to riches story of a guy who came from nothing, became America's most successful comic and sitcom star, America's dad, Dr. Huxtable. Oh, Cliff, a guy who used his success to do so much for young women trying to break into showbiz. If you were a young, attractive, poor, desperate young woman who wanted to make it in Hollywood, Dr. Huxtable would find time to help you. He'd invite you into his hotel room or to one of his mansions. He'd give you some acting tips, advice, and always a nice strong drink to help you relax. And then as you passed out, he'd be kind enough to undress you, tuck you into a cozy bed. And then maybe he'd also, out of the goodness of his heart, ever the giver, introduce Little Bill to you, his trusted sidekick, who would massage the inside of your vagina if you were lucky, and then send you on your way with a cool, refreshing jelly pudding pop. Oh, what a guy! Hey, pudding pops! No, he was a monster. No, and that's not the angle we are taking today. Bill Cosby's a real piece of shit, if you didn't know. He was once known as America's dad. Now he's arguably known to most as one of the most prolific rapists in American history. A man who is currently accused of sexually assaulting over 60 women. Assaults that began just about as soon as he got a little bit of money and fame. Before these allegations went viral online and led to more and more accusers coming forward and waging more and more lawsuits, Cosby was loved by millions of adults and children across the U.S. and around the world. With his humor and charm, Cosby built an award-winning career for himself in the early 60s as one of America's most well-known, respected, and successful stand-up comics. Built a reputation as a great guy, a gentle, loving family man. He made TV history as an actor by winning multiple Emmy Awards as a black man co-starring with the white man on the TV show I Spy. He built on that success with new projects and films in the 70s. Then, in 1984, his most successful project, one of the most successful TV shows of all time, The Cosby Show, aired to huge ratings and widespread critical acclaim. The Cosby Show was the #1 show on television in all of America for an incredible 5 straight years. No comic was more famous and more beloved in the 1980s than Bill Cosby. Cosby was no longer in his prime and at the peak of his fame when the first allegations of sexual assaults surfaced publicly in 2005. But he was still a household name with a solid reputation as being a force for good. He still held immense cultural influence and had piles and piles of money. His fortune was estimated at its peak to be worth around $400 million. Following that 2005 accusation, several additional women accused him of sexual misconduct, but after he settled his lawsuit with the original accuser, the scandal went away for a while. But then it would come back with a vengeance. Allegations resurfaced in 2014 when another stand-up comic, the great Hannibal Buress, made a joke that, after him telling on the road to no real reaction for about 6 months, finally was taken seriously and went viral online, leading to other victims coming forward, which eventually led to Cosby's incarceration. I got a big story for you this week. Today, we will cover Cosby's epic rise as he built his brand on being one of the good guys. A clean comic, wholesome humor, a loving family man, and a mentor to many, including so many young women. And then we'll dive into his shocking fall from grace. All the allegations against him, so many women telling variations of the same disturbing story, his 2 criminal trials, and where he is now on this biographical, comedic, but ultimately true crime edition of Timesuck.
This is Michael McDonald, and you're listening to Timesuck.
You're listening to Timesuck.
Well, happy Monday, and welcome back to the Cult of the Curious. I'm Dan Kelmans, the master sucker, sometime a conspiracy supporter, frequent conspiracy mocker, continual forgetter of holidays. My God, totally forgot it was MLK Day last Monday, and now it feels a little weird to mention that, considering, this week's subject. President of the Robert Stack version of Unsolved Mysteries fan club, and you are listening to Timesuck. Hail Nimrod, hail Lucifina. Praise be to good boy Bojangles and glory be to Triple M. So much story today. So let's not fuck about, you beautiful bastards. I don't think any real setup or the establishing of any context is needed before diving into today's timeline. First section of the timeline will cover Bill Cosby's early life and career, his rise to fame, the famous Cosby Show, and his early scandals. Then in the second part of the timeline, we'll get to know the real Bill Cosby as I cover the many, many, many allegations, trials, appeals, and lawsuits he has been put through. That doesn't sound right because, he did this shit himself. He has participated in. We'll also hear directly from many of his accusers. Bill Cosby, America's wolf in a dad costume. Let's meet him.
Strap on those boots, soldier. We're marching down a Timesuck timeline.
William Henry Cosby Jr., born July 12th, 1937. He was born July 12th, 1937 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Home of the Eagles and their running back Saquon Barkley this year, who's been playing out of his fucking mind. So much fun to watch, my cat. Bill was the oldest of four boys, born to parents Anna and William Cosby Sr. Bill was, by all accounts, a wonderful older brother, playful, super funny. His favorite game growing up apparently was something he called sleep wrestling. Very wholesome. He would wrestle all three of his younger siblings at the same time. But to make the match fair, since he was outnumbered, they would have to drink Bubba Billy's Sleepy Time tea to start the match. The game was won when either his three younger brothers were able to pin their older brother for a 3-second count, or when Bill pinned all of them after they lost consciousness. And if the younger brothers lost, oh shit, getting pinned, that was just the beginning. To celebrate his victory, Bill would take off their clothes and he'd rape them and then put their clothes back on. And then they would learn that sometimes when you wrestle Bubba Bill, you get a sore butthole. Kidding. Only kidding because he had brothers, not sisters. Had he had younger sisters, well, I'd probably just say maybe kidding. We know a lot more about Bill Cosby's ancestry than we do about most of the subjects we've explored here, so let me share some of that history. In his 2014 book, Bill Cosby, god damn, that guy makes a strong-ass drink. Cosby, his life and times. Biographer Mark Whitaker traced Bill's history back to the farmer named John Cosby in Nelson County, Virginia, who, quote, fit a more typical profile of white slave owners of the time, 2/3 of whom owned 10 indentured servants or fewer. John Cosby enslaved 4 people, a woman named Maria, 2 girls named Barbara and Anarchy. Yes, Anarchy. I had to double check the source on that name. And a boy named Sam. After his death, John Cosby's 6 heirs fought over his estate. In 1833, Maria, Barbara, Anarchy, and Sam were all sold at an auction, and the 2 girls were enslaved by 2 local farmers. Maria and Sam were enslaved by Richard Cosby, one of John's sons. Dick Cosby then disappeared from Virginia records. By the time Maria died, she and Sam were enslaved by a man related to one of John's daughters through marriage. Sam went on to have 3 children, Catherine, Louisa, and Zachariah. Zachariah born January 17, 1841, per Nelson County records. Zach Cosby married Louisa Johnson, remained in Nelson County as a sharecropper. In 1866, they had a daughter named Mary, followed by 17 more children, 18 kids. So thankful to live following the invention of reliable birth control. Their 13th child, Samuel Russell Cosby, born December 1881, named after his grandfather. Samuel Cosby married Gertrude Thornhill, not enough Gertrudes around anymore, and went on to become a farmer. Samuel turned 30 at the start of the Great Migration, when thousands of Black Americans moved out of the South to big cities in the North and Midwest for better lives and job opportunities. Samuel and Gertrude moved to Philadelphia with their infant son, William Henry Cosby, born in 1913. Around 130,000 African Americans arrived in Philly throughout the 1910s, 1920s. Huge influx of people looking for jobs. And there were a lot of jobs, but those seeking them had to fight past an incredible amount of discrimination in the northern city to get them. Whites working in local industries such as textiles, garment making, publishing, and shipbuilding were generally, as products of their time, wildly racist, and no part of them wanted to work with Black people. And there were also a lot of Black people in Philly who did not want to work with more Black people. At the time, the city's existing population of middle-class African Americans, many of whose families had been in the Philly area for generations, were called Old Philadelphians, and they did not appreciate the influx of newcomers from the Great Migration. So Samuel and Gertrude didn't exactly get a warm welcome in the so-called City of Brotherly Love. The Cosbys settled in the Germantown neighborhood in North Philly, which was founded by German Quaker abolitionists way back in the late 17th century. old section of town. Germantown was a racially mixed neighborhood at the time. Around this time, many white families started to leave Germantown and other Philly neighborhoods for the suburbs, and eventually blacks outnumbered whites in Germantown by more than 4-1. Despite the racism he and his wife encountered, Samuel Cosby found the work he moved to Philly for, got a solid manufacturing job at the Elwood Ivins Steel Tube Company in nearby Cheltenham Township. There we go. Cheltenham Township, and he held that job for around 30 years. Samuel also walked, his 2-mile route to work every day that he had to go to work for the next 3 decades because he refused to sit in the back of a bus or in the back of a trolley. Good for him, having that fucking pride. In private, he told his kids and later his grandkids, racism is wasted time. Samuel was a good dude. Described as being physically strong but gentle, deeply spiritual and religious. The Bible was the only book he kept in his house. He liked to read it after work, and he would spend most of his weekends in church. Samuel and Gertrude would go on to have 6 kids together, and their eldest son, William, was a rebellious teenager and sent to live with relatives in Virginia, but then he'd be back in the city by his early 20s, and he would start courting Anna Pearl Height, who lived nearby. Anna's described as spirited and bright, and was a year older than William. The two got married on Labor Day, 1936. And 10 months after that, Bill Jr., their first child, was born. The newlyweds lived on Beechwood Street in Germantown, close to both of their parents. According to author Mark Whitaker, one of Bill's first childhood friends was his neighbor, Johnny Baines. Oh, Johnny Baines! Bill and Johnny were inseparable, caused plenty of mischief in the neighborhood. By Whitaker's own estimates, the two of them would end up raping over 75% of their classmates. Sorry, Whitaker didn't say that. So hard not to constantly say shit like that. Bill's younger brother, James, was born just before his 2nd birthday, and James was a sick baby, which put additional financial pressure on Bill Sr., and he did not always handle that pressure well. He started drinking heavily, spent a lot of his evenings at the tavern instead of home, and when he finally did come home, sometimes he would physically assault his wife. Some of Bill Jr.'s earliest memories centered around his parents arguing and fighting about his dad's drinking and spending. Bill would later recall, as quoted by Whitaker, "I remember my father beating my mother up 3 times. I was too small to do anything about it." Bill would say he would never forget these assaults. And he decided when he grew up and was big and strong, he would also assault women. But way, way more than his dad ever did. And he would make sure his assaults were much more disturbing. It was that competitive spirit, that fire inside of him, that would serve him well on his later quest for fame and fortune. Sorry, I did it again. It's too easy with this son of a bitch. Sometimes Bill's wife, Anna, young Bill's mother, would race her husband to the tavern on Fridays, which was Bill Sr.'s payday, to collect his wages before he could spend them. As time went on, the family situation worsened. Bill worked less and less, and he drank more and more. By the time Bill Jr. was 5, his parents could no longer afford to live in their house on Beechwood Street, and they moved 5 miles away to a smaller, much shittier home on Stewart Street. They lived in a, quote, dilapidated hovel on a row of equally distressed buildings. Their home had no hot water, and for years, Bill Jr. only had 2 shirts and 2 pairs of pants to his name. Bill remembered being saddened by the loss of his friend Johnny when they moved, and his parents' fights, but he still enjoyed visiting his grandparents, especially his grandma, Martha Height. He liked to listen to his grandpa Samuel's Bible stories. Samuel was a talented storyteller, giving his characters different voices, emphasizing moral lessons. And then Bill Sr., his dad, would turn things around a bit, and he'd spend the next decade in the Navy. He would serve 3 tours of duty. He visited home briefly between tours, and he and Anna had 2 more sons during this period. Dude's sperm count was high. Anna cleaned houses to support her kids while Bill Sr. was abroad. She and the kids moved into the Richard Allen Homes, a low-income housing project completed in 1941. Anna had added her family to the waiting list after being drawn to the apartments because they were clean and new, and she liked the fact that over 1,000 families would live there, and they could look out for each other's children. Anna and the kids moved into apartment A at 919 Parish Place, a small 2-bedroom apartment where Bill would spend much of his childhood. In 1946, Bill's brother James developed strep throat and rheumatic fever, an inflammatory disease that can develop when strep throat is not treated properly, and he died within weeks. Died a month before Bill's 9th birthday. It's fucking crazy. I literally forgot that strep throat used to kill people. My daughter Monroe had strep throat just a few weeks ago. I was never worried about her dying. I was worried about her giving it to me because she loves to take a few bites of whatever I'm eating, and she likes to drink some of whatever I'm drinking because she is a gremlin. By the time Bill was in junior high, he was working several odd jobs to help his mom with expenses and to earn some spending money for stuff like roofies and chloroform, masks and rope. I'm not sure what he spent his money on. But I know he delivered papers in the morning, shine shoes, and bagged groceries after school. And on the weekends, he helped the local milkman and the bread man. Anna Crosby had always emphasized the value of education to her boys, but Bill wasn't all that interested in school. He was described as a bright but unmotivated student, and soon as, not surprisingly, a class clown. Early on, he learned that humor was a way to make friends and get what he wanted, and he became a skilled liar. One teacher even said William should become either a lawyer or an actor because he lies so well. An assessment, Bill the talented liar, that is just a bit cringy in retrospect. One teacher encouraged Bill to perform in school plays. He took an aptitude test in 5th grade, was declared the brightest person in his school. At first he was pleased, but soon he was being called a nerd, and he wanted to maintain that cool kid image he wanted. Bill was transferred to an advanced class to study world geography and music. He said he spent most of the first lesson watching his friends in the non-advanced class playing outside or going on field trips. And he's like, what am I doing here? Bill's teacher, Sue Gruna, grew tired of his class clown antics, asked him if he'd like to perform for the whole class. Bill wasn't sure what to do, but he did love to make his classmates laugh. So he did an impersonation of some of the old ladies in his neighborhood. And apparently it killed. The teacher saw that he was not intimidated by a crowd, so then she chose him to give a public speaking demonstration. And he went on to into a comedic tirade for his next performance about sharing a bed with his brother. That killed. Hearing his classmates' laughter thrilled him. At home during this time, Bill enjoyed listening to the radio, especially listening to famous comedians of the day like Jerry Lewis. Interestingly, just a little over 2 years ago, an investigation by a reporter for Vanity Fair led to uncovering a bunch of pretty disturbing sexual assault allegations from decades ago against Lewis, who died in 2017 at the age of 91. To quote a summary of the investigation printed in The Guardian in February of 2022, former co-stars of the late actor and comedian Jerry Lewis have accused him of sexual assault and sexual harassment. The women all met Lewis when he was at the height of his Hollywood career. Emmy-winning Allen versus Farrow filmmakers, Amy Ziering and Kirby Dick, have been investigating Hollywood's long history of abuse, and they found that some of the most explosive accusations involve Lewis. Among those interviewed were Hope Holliday, who starred alongside Lewis in The Ladies' Man, Jill St. John, who starred opposite Lewis in Who's Minding the Store, Anna Maria Alberghetti, who worked with him on Cinderfella, Karen Sharp, who played Lewis's love interest in The Disorderly Orderly, Oscar-nominated writer Renee Taylor, and singer Lainey Kazan. Sharp, now 87, alleged that after a costume fitting in Lewis's office in 1964, Lewis physically assaulted her. She said, he grabbed me, he began to fondle me, he unzipped his pants. Quite frankly, I was dumbstruck. I put my hand up and said, wait a minute. I don't know if this is a requirement for your leading ladies, but this is something I don't do. And then I could see he was furious. I got the feeling that never really happened to him. Sharp alleged that after she rebuffed Lewis's disgusting advance, he refused to rehearse with her, forbade the entire production, barred the director and assistant director from speaking to her. If anyone speaks to you, will be fined, a crew member allegedly told her. And if true, obviously how fucking gross and pathetic. Holiday 91 said she had known Lewis since she was 13 years old, but was in her early 30s when he allegedly invited her into his dressing room, locked her in with him, and began to, quote, talk dirty and masturbate. He said, you've got a great figure. You've got nice boobs. You've got lovely legs. That's what I like to see, Holiday said. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there. I wanted to leave so badly. I wanted to get out of there, and I couldn't. She said the incident left her depressed. I didn't want to go on dates. It wasn't good. Holiday said her friends urged her to report Lewis to the Screen Actors Guild, but she was too afraid to do so. She said he was very big at Paramount. I was under contract to him and to Paramount, and I didn't want to shake the boat. I figured I would just keep my mouth shut. Numerous other disturbing allegations mirrored these. The powerful preying on the powerless. How sad that was allegedly, when it came to powerful male actors, directors, producers, preying on female actresses, incredibly common in Hollywood for around a century. I bet if Bill would have found out about these allegations concerning Jerry Lewis, he would have fucking loved him that much more. And now back to young Billy. Oh, back to Junior. Bill was interested in sports, participated in track and football in school, also struggled once he got to high school. He didn't apply himself, and he failed the 10th grade twice. Ultimately, Bill decided to drop out of high school in 1955, his junior year. I mean, most of his friends were seniors, already graduating. By 1956, Bill, now 18, is working full-time at a shoe repair store. and he had a side gig fixing mufflers at an auto body shop. He then enrolled in night school to get his high school degree equivalent to please his mom, but that didn't last long. One day, Bill was hanging out with a friend in Germantown, decided to drink a beer. He later said he was unnerved by the loss of control he felt after just a few sips of alcohol and decided he would not drink again. Said he didn't want to become like his father, or he was scared of losing control because he knew he was a fucking demon and didn't want to, people to see the real Bill Cosby because he will become something so much worse than his dad. Somebody who made other people drink shit that they didn't want to drink. During this time in his life, Bill struggled to find his purpose. He confided in his grandfather, Samuel, who told him to not let anyone see his innermost emotions, warning, quote, "If you put yourself in a compromised position, you're going to have to learn to act not embarrassed." Okay. Not sure how that advice was important enough to end up in his biography. If my grandpa would have given that advice to me, I probably would have shaken my head, acted like I understood, maybe even said, "Oh yeah, okay, thanks." And then the second I ran into some friends after that, I would have been like, "Check out this crazy shit my grandpa told me. What the fuck does that even mean?" Sadly, Bill would learn how to hide his innermost self too well. One day while working in the shoe repair store, Bill realized all his friends had either gone to college or the military, and he felt like he was going to get stuck in Germantown for the rest of his life if he didn't do something quick. So shortly before his 19th birthday, without telling anyone in his family, Bill decided to enlist in the Navy. For the next 4 years, Bill fucked so many sleepy seaman butts on ship after ship. He acted like it wasn't a big deal. That was just a silly prank. His fellow seamen would joke about, how they always ended up falling asleep, around Bill and waking up with a sore butthole. They would call it getting torpedoed by Junior. No, he worked as a medical aide on the ship's hospitals and other military facilities. He joined the Navy's track team, excelled in the high jump, apparently. While in the Navy, Bill started to regret his decision to drop out of high school, and he would earn his GED through correspondence courses. In 1961, Bill is awarded a track and field scholarship from Temple University in Philadelphia. He was faster than most of his classmates. Of course he was. He was fucking 24 years old as a freshman. I'm not impressed. Bill studied physical education, ran track, played on the school's football team, where again, being a, good 6 years older than his peers had to have helped him quite a bit. Bill got a job as a bartender at a coffee house while he went to college. Is that where he learned to spike unsuspecting women's drinks? Maybe. He would entertain the customers with his jokes, which quickly led to him landing a spot filling in for the house comedian at a nearby club. And that went well. And it led to him getting a gig as a warm-up act for his cousin's radio show in front of a live studio audience, and that went really well. Bill was inspired by comedians like Dick Gregory, a black comic who discussed racial issues in his routines. Gregory, many years later, before he passed away in 2017 at the age of 84, would speak about the Cosby scandal, several times actually, and he consistently refused to believe Cosby's accusers. Instead, he felt that Cosby was the victim, that his accusers were being paid to say what they said by shadowy power players who did not want to see a black man buy a major media company. Even though Cosby was not trying to he was not trying to buy a major media company. When asked what major media company Cosby was trying to buy, Gregory would never name anything because this is just a nonsense conspiracy. Dick Gregory was an incredible comic, an amazing civil rights activist for decades, for half a century. He also seemed to maybe lose his mind a bit, final decade or so of his life. Very early in his career, Bill discussed race in his act, but he later decided to drop it from his performances and focused on stories with more universal, non-polarizing themes. He began to craft that harmless, lovable image that really made you feel like you could trust him. Halfway through his college career, Bill dropped out of college, decided to pursue comedy full-time because it was going real well. He was doing gigs in places like Greenwich Village in New York City. Quickly after that, starting to tour and build his audience. 1963, just 2 short years after starting college at Temple University, so less than 2 years, roughly about 2 years after starting stand-up, Bill already was making his first appearance on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, which introduced him to a huge national audience. He was only 26 years old. Once he started focusing on stand-up, oh man, he rose through the ranks so fast. That show, with Carson as the host, would peak at 17 million viewers. Not sure how many watched Cosby, but, I'm guessing at least several million. The Tonight Show launched comics to stardom back then. And it would be the first of dozens of appearances, and it would almost immediately lead to a record deal with Warner Brothers. Later that same year, in November, he released his debut comedy album titled Bill Cosby, The Dirtiest Dick in Philly. No, it's called Bill Cosby, Master Hypnotist. You're getting very sleepy. No, it was actually called Bill Cosby is a Very Funny Fellow, right? The very next year, Bill would win a Grammy for Best Comedy Performance for his second album, his 1964 album, I Started Out as a Child. That motherfucker. I listened to that album so many times when I started out in stand-up, when I was consuming all sorts of great records. It's a great album. I couldn't listen to it now, but it's a great album. He's a piece of shit, but wildly talented, incredible storyteller. Throughout the 1960s, Bill would release numerous hit albums, just rapidly cranking them out, one after another, and he would win 5 more Grammys. The next was for another album I also listened to a ton, Why Is There Air? I had the vinyl version of that album framed before I literally threw that shit in the trash after I found out who he really was. He won the Grammy again the next year in 1967 for Wonderfulness. I also had that one framed, the vinyl version. 1967's Revenge hit number 1 on the R&B chart. He also released an album Music in 1967, Silver Throat, Bill Cosby Sings. His song Little Old Man reached number 4 on the U.S. Hot 100 chart. He was killing it. He even covered Ray Charles, I Got a Woman. Horribly, but he did sing it. Why don't you check this out?
I got a woman way over town. She's good to me.
How weird is it hearing Bill Cosby sing this song?
She is. I said I got a woman way over town. She's good to me. Yes, she is.
Also creepy.
Gives me lots of money when I'm in need.
Creepy to hear Bill singing about getting any woman. Here's how that song is supposed to sound. Let's palate cleanse with Ray Charles singing that song. How simple sound. Bill later won 2 more Grammys for his recordings for kids as part of his Electric Company TV series between 1971 and 1973. Totally so random, but did you know a young Morgan Freeman starred alongside Cosby on that show? I did not. Here's a clip of Morgan, 34 years old, from 1971, playing a DJ. Let's just listen to him just for a second. Young Morgan Freeman.
Okay, brothers and sisters and misses and misters, here's your daddy-o with the sounds to go. No shucking, no jiving, I'm telling you, your music's arriving. Ha ha, what I say. It's Mel Mounds here with our special request game called The Same as Your Name.
So weird seeing him young. In my mind, Morgan Freeman was never born. He just appeared on Earth, just fully formed, about the age of 50. And then just stayed being 50 for the next 30 or 40 years. Dude is actually the same age as Bill Cosby. He's aged much better. They were only born 5 weeks apart. Getting ahead of myself, though, in the timeline. Backing up to 1963, rising comedy star, 26-year-old Bill meets his future wife, Camille Olivia Hanks. Born March 20th, 1944. More random trivia. Camille Hanks, distantly related to Tom Hanks, the actor. Both of them share Abraham Lincoln as a common ancestor. Camille was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Norbeck, Maryland. Unlike Bill, she attended private Catholic schools. The Cosby Show character Claire Huxtable, Bill's wife on the show, will be based on Camille. Bill and Camille met on a blind date in a bowling alley in the spring of 1963. Bill was in Washington, D.C. for a comedy gig at a little club called Shadows. It's actually a cool name for a club. Camille was a psychology student at the University of Maryland. Camille's parents thought she was too young to be with Bill, who was almost 7 years older than her when she was only 19. But the young lovers could not be kept apart. Well, at least according to Bill, they could not be kept apart. Camille doesn't actually remember the first dozen or so years of their relationship. One moment, she said she was drinking a rum and coke at a bowling alley with a guy she just met, and the next thing she knew, she was waking up in her 30s, married to a comedian with several kids. No, that's fucking crazy. Back to reality now. The two kept up a long-distance relationship when Bill returned to New York. Camille dropped out of college the next year to be with Bill, and her parents reluctantly finally gave their blessing for the marriage, which appeared inevitable, and took place January 25th, 1964. Yeah, they were right to to be concerned. Both Camille and Bill would later go back to pursue higher education and would serve as important donors to various universities. For example, in 1988, the Cosbys would give Spelman College in Atlanta, a private, all-women's, historically black college, $20 million. Largest gift ever given to an HBCU at that time. Yes, this serial abuser of women has also done a lot of great things. So much good, and so much bad. 1965, Bill Cosby got his biggest break yet when he portrayed the character Alexander Scott alongside Robert Culp in the series I Spy, TV show where two spies pose as a professional tennis player and coach. Bill would receive 3 consecutive Emmys for his work on this show. He's fucking killing it. Went straight from Grammys to Emmys while also getting more Grammys. His career was on fire in the 60s, and it would keep heating up for decades. According to PBS and other sources, I Spy was the first time America saw an interracial pairing on television in which both characters were cast as equals. Both lead actors decided they would not address the casting choice. Co-star Robert Culp said, Cosby came in and he said, listen, our television series is a statement by being a non-statement. I said, done. And we shook hands on it, and we never talked about it again. I love that. He and Camille and their kids, who I will introduce in just a minute, will move to L.A. after the show takes off. And then several years later, 1971, the family will decide to move back to the East Coast. There are lots of seemingly credible rumors that Camille moved back to save the marriage after Bill's womanizing was rubbed in her face too many times out in Hollywood. Not totally sure why she stayed. He was fucking famous, making lots of money. That probably had a lot to do with it. Camille and the kids moved to Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, a very quaint, beautiful little unincorporated town of less than 1,700 people out in the woods in northwestern Massachusetts, an hour north of Springfield. Looks like an awesome little place, actually. And Bill would travel back and forth between his home there and Los Angeles. According to biographer Mark Whitaker, Camille felt that Hollywood culture facilitated Bill's, quote, selfish behavior. Being far from home will allow Bill now to more easily live his double life, which, as we will soon see, he had already started living since his rape allegations go back to the 60s. Very, very credible allegations. 1971, Temple University grants Bill a bachelor's degree on the basis of life experience, and then he starts graduate work at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where he will earn his Master's of Arts degree in 1972. Meanwhile, on the West Coast, the wonderful student and father focuses on his career and on being a sexual predator. At least 6 future sexual abuse allegations will stem from Cosby's time in Los Angeles during these years. Actually, you know what? I just added, I went off notes and said during these, actually, I think a few of them were later years, so strike that part. Also in LA in the 1970s, Cosby will have an affair with Shawn Upshaw Brown, a secretary. Cosby later testified that he paid her $100,000 to keep the affair a secret. And then in 2005, Shawn Upshaw Brown will speak to the National Enquirer and claim Cosby drugged and raped her the last time they had sex. Meanwhile, starting in the mid-60s, Bill and Camille had 5 kids. Daughter Erica Renee Cosby, born April 8th, 1965. Currently, Erica, very talented painter, adjunct art professor at NYU. She is very talented. I like a lot of her work. And at least based on her Instagram post, she seems super cool. His second daughter, Erin Cosby, born July 23rd, 1966. Bill and Erin have had a troubled relationship, which seems like it mostly stems from Erica's dad being a pretty shitty father in some ways. He allegedly leaked a story about her drug and alcohol abuse. A leak that would a leak like that would be on brand for him to do that to somebody. According to Mark Whitaker's 2014 Cosby biography, Erin developed a drug problem as a teenager. And then during her sophomore year of college, it worsened. She told her parents she planned on dropping out. Bill and his wife then decided she needed to learn to grow up the hard way. In a 1989 interview with the LA Times, Bill described his relationship with Erin as being estranged, adding, quote, "She can't come here. She's not a person you can trust." The balls of that ruthlessly, legendarily untrustworthy motherfucker to publicly state that people can't trust her. Yeah. He said, quote, or I guess he added, "Yeah, sure, I rape people, a lot of people. People who trusted me. People a lot like, my daughter, I guess. Young women her age, maybe a little younger." Bill then tossed out a hard wink, unleashed one of his patented Fat Albert hey, hey, heys. Hey, hey, hey. And then he continued with, "But what I don't do is use people non-sexually. I only use people sexually, if you know what I mean." And then Bill gives another hard wink and unbuttons his shirt to reveal a graphic tee underneath with the words, "Nothing gets you laid faster than Spanish fly." No, here's what he really said. This particular daughter appears to be the only one who is really very selfish. She's never held down a job, never kept an apartment for more than 6 months. She never finishes anything. She uses her boyfriends. She wants the finer things, but can't stand anybody else's dirt, which is important. Why the fuck is he talking this kind of shit publicly about his own daughter? That's ridiculous. At the age of 23, Aaron would accuse famous fighter, boxer Mike Tyson of attempted rape. And Mike Tyson would later go to prison for raping another woman. According to a Washington Post article that came out in 1992, and this information about this also came out in several other media outlets, Aaron said that she and a friend met the boxer and another man at a Manhattan nightclub in November of 1989. And they all decided to leave the club together to find a place to talk. Aaron recounted that they piled into Tyson's car, headed out without a particular destination. When the car turned towards New Jersey, Aaron Cosby asked where they were going, and Tyson, whose marriage to actress Robin Givens had already ended amid allegations of spousal abuse the year before, told Aaron they were going to a party at his estate. On the way, Aaron claimed Tyson kept returning to the same theme, Bill Cosby. She later told a live studio audience on the Donahue Show, "He was very concerned about how my father felt about him. And I said, everything is fine. My dad supports your fights." And he was very happy about that. When Tyson, also 23 at the time, and Aaron arrived at his home, she said she saw cars out front, assumed there was a crowd gathering for the party, but inside the house was virtually empty. The scenario, not unlike the scenes recounted decades later by many women who accused her father, Bill, of inviting them to parties at his home, only to arrive to find almost no one there. On this night in New Jersey, Aaron says Tyson gave her a tour of the place. When they got to his trophy room, she told interviewers that the boxer locked the door. Then he was all over her. She alleged pinning her to the floor, groping her while she screamed no until a member of the household staff heard her screams and knocked on the door, giving her an opportunity to flee. Aaron told her parents right away, and what did America's dad do? Well, he didn't go to the police. He didn't fly into a rage at Tyson. He called his lawyers, who then called Tyson and said that they would press charges unless Mike underwent a year's worth of therapy. And then Mike attended one therapy session, partially. By his own account, he left early. And Bill never did shit about this attempted rape. And Aaron, his daughter, felt incredibly let down by her dad, who didn't seem to think that Tyson needed to really be punished for trying to rape her. What a guy! Oh, America's dad. The two became estranged over this. Aaron sought out therapy, moved to Miami Beach. She kept a low profile, worked as a party promoter and in a gift shop, not reconciling with her father until the late 90s after a family tragedy that I will discuss further in the timeline. So maybe that is why Bill threw her under the bus. Because the truth, it wasn't that she had a shitty character. It's that he didn't fucking do what was right by her. And multiple women will later claim that Cosby had raped them around the same time as he is showing sympathy for this fellow rapist. Let's talk about Mr. Huxtable's next child now, his first son. Ennis Cosby, born April 15th, 1969, and he will be Cosby's only son. Another daughter, Enza Cosby, born April 8th, 1973. Enza will pass away from kidney failure in February of 2018, sadly, in her final years. She vigorously defended her dad against any and all accusations against him, comparing him being charged with crimes to being lynched by a racist lynch mob. That's a really good way to shit on all the innocent people who actually were victims of racist lynch mobs. I will say that she got that line of thinking, though, from her mom, which we will discover later. The couple's youngest daughter, Evan Cosby, born August 27th, 1976. Evan, I like that name, Evan, E-V-I-N. Evan, now a luxury boutique owner and graduate from the Fashion Institute of Technology. Fit him, that's actually where Lindsay went. I'll share some additional updates on the Cosby kids as we go forward in the timeline. Right now, let's return to the late 1960s. After I Spy ended in 1968, Bill started his own sitcom, The Bill Cosby Show, which would run from 1969 to 1971. Did pretty well. It's a precursor to The Cosby Show, and he played a gym teacher at a LA high school. Then from 1971 to 1973, he appeared in the children's series I mentioned earlier, The Electric Company. And while Bill was starring on The Electric Company, he also developed the animated series Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, based on aspects of his own childhood. Here is the intro to that show. I used to watch this all the time.
Hey, 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 it's Fat Albert, and I'm gonna sing a song for you. And Bill's gonna show you a thing or two. You'll have some fun now with me and all the gang, learning from each other.
super cute show.
It's Bill Cosby coming at you with music and fun, and if you're not careful, you may learn something before it's done. So let's get ready, okay? Hey, hey, hey!
So deserving that the guy who created so much clean comedy, wrote so many kids' books, produced, starred in so many quote-unquote wholesome TV shows and movies, almost certainly was drugging and raping dozens, if not hundreds of women while he was doing that shit. Ugh. Fat Albert first aired September of 1972, ran until 1985, but production was not continuous. There were some years off mixed in there. According to PBS, the pioneering program showcased a cast of inner-city kids who used imagination to deal creatively with the challenges of childhood. Cosby himself said, "I wanted to just take the opposites of what heroes look like." The lead character in Cosby's animated show, Fat Albert, was thought to be this laughing, joking, very kind of shy person who was thought to be dumb because he was fat, because he was slow. I'm talking about the stereotypes here. Because he was fat, he could not do anything. Because he was fat, he was in the way during athletic events, clumsy, and fell down. So that was Fat Albert. We put him there and made him the leader of the group. Brought out that he was the intelligent fellow and kept the gang together. We put all these guys together and used them to solve problems with a great deal of love and care and intelligence. Cosby's acting career slowed a little bit in the 1970s, and he focused more on advertising deals. That's when he started doing lots of commercials. In 1974, he started working with Jell-O, and kids around America would now know him as the Jell-O Man. Here's one of his commercials from the 1970s.
Jell-O pudding pops, frozen pudding on a stick.
I want one.
You want one?
Yeah.
Well, I know that little kids love pudding pops because they taste fantabulous. And mothers love it because they know it's made with the goodness of real Jell-O pudding. But I don't know about a kitty cat.
Meow.
Okay.
Jell-O brand pudding pops made with the goodness of real Jell-O pudding.
Well, Miss Kitty Cat, how would you describe Jell-O pudding pops?
Perfect.
Sadly, Miss Kitty Cat's pudding pop was made mostly out of chloroform and Benadryl. Dude probably did make some strong-ass Jell-O shots, though. While he didn't get the same level of fame for his commercials as he would for stand-up and sitcoms, he will later claim he made more money doing ads than he did doing anything else in his career. Camille acted as her husband's business manager for all this stuff. She later said in an interview with Oprah that she never felt overshadowed by him. She said she respected his wisdom and his knowledge. Their marriage feels like a sham to me, a business arrangement. I'll explain why as we go forward. Cosby co-starred alongside two legends, Sidney Poitier, and Harry Belafonte. In the 1974 comedy action film Uptown Saturday Night, Cosby then went on to star with Poitier in two more movies. 1975's Let's Do It Again, and 1977's A Piece of the Action. Also in 1977, Cosby promised his wife he would, quote, cut back on his playboy ways. See, what kind of arrangement did they have? He said he would really focus on the family now. But in reality, he would just keep having affairs. And also, very likely, keep drugging and raping women who trusted him. Also in 1977, Cosby earned his doctorate in urban education from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. How wonderful for this guy. He wrote his dissertation on the Fat Albert Show. Similar to his Temple University degree, Cosby earned his PhD through non-traditional means. His screen work counted towards his course credit. So he actually didn't earn a PhD. Not really. Not traditionally. He was more like he was given one. But he still is, very intelligent, highly educated dude. John Chancellor, a former anchor of NBC Nightly News, said in an interview that in the mid-1970s, Cosby was, quote, the nation's most effective communicator. But according to the New York Times, Cosby felt like he struggled to find a vehicle for his broader performing talents. Well, The Cosby Show would be the solution to that problem. For his next big venture, Bill decided to work on a new TV show partially based on his own life. He and Camille, some producers, they landed on an idea to feature an upper-middle-class black family with a doctor father and an attorney wife. The Cosby Show first aired September 20th, 1984, and received strong reviews and ratings. I fucking loved that show as a kid. I remember watching it in the mid-late 80s, laughing my ass off. Maybe falling in a little bit of love or a little bit of lust with Lisa Bonet, who played Denise Huxtable, daughter of his. Also watched her in the Cosby spinoff, A Different World, which I liked. And then so many years later, when I started reading all the allegations, when Hannibal Buress brought the real Cosby to light, my memories of Cosby all tarnished. And I knew I could never enjoy anything that motherfucker did ever again. Still love Lisa Bonet, though. 2018. Lisa was asked about her former TV dad in an interview published by Deadline. She said she had no knowledge of Cosby's crimes against women, adding, quote, but there was just energy. A type of sinister shadow energy cannot be concealed. Asked if she sensed a darkness, Bonet said, always. And if I had anything more to reveal, then it would have happened a long time ago. That's my nature. The truth will set you free. Bonet and Cosby had a somewhat rocky relationship. The consummate hypocrite, Bill publicly did not approve of Lisa posing topless for Interview magazine, nor did he approve of her appearing in the 1987 film Angel Heart, in which she had a nude scene with Mickey Rourke. Man, the high and mighty moralist, who's secretly a sexual predator. Why is that such a sadly common tale? The Cosby Show would run for 8 full seasons until April 30th, 1992, and it was the number one show, as I mentioned in the beginning of the episode. Number one show on TV in America for 5 straight years. That's a fucking crazy accomplishment. New York Times reviewed the sitcom on the day it premiered, writing that it was, quote, just another family sitcom focused on middle-class family problems, but, the piece continued, the difference is simply that Mr. Cosby, here at his very best, can take the ordinary and make it seem delightfully fresh. He is not just another harassed father. He is the ultimate father dealing with problems that are terribly and hilariously real. The Times labeled it the classiest, most entertaining new situational comedy of the season. Oh, hell yeah. A classy show for a classy guy. By November of 1984, The Times was calling The Cosby Show the season's primetime phenomenon. Cosby Show was the most popular new series of the fall, received almost all positive reviews, according to The Times review. Unlike most such series where contrived plots and rat-a-tat one-liners prevail, The Cosby series attempts to echo reality. It is filled with small moments that prompt chuckles of recognition in the viewer. The family is loving, but there's an edge as well. The children squabble, and the parents get exasperated. Times also wrote that the show broke stereotypes by portraying a successful, humorous African-American family. And it did. And that's what makes all of this especially infuriating. Bill Cosby did break down many racial barriers in America. He really did. And in doing so, he opened a lot of doors for a lot of future black entertainers. And really more than that, it wasn't just about entertainers. He was so successful in negating so many stupid stereotypes about black families and black men. But while he was trailblazing, he was also raping a lot of women, many of whom were black. Life would be so much easier. Life would be so much easier if quote-unquote bad guys were always consistently bad and if quote-unquote good guys were always consistently good, right? Bill Cosby is both. So fucking good, so fucking bad. It's a real mindfuck. Cosby was quoted as saying, some people have said our show is about a white family in blackface. What does that mean? Does it mean only white people have a lock on filling together in a home where the father is a doctor and the mother is a lawyer and the children are constantly being told to study by their parents? Yeah, so true. Karen Snyder, a show producer, said, he doesn't ignore the family's blackness, but he doesn't make a statement about it either. And that's what made it so relatable and beautiful, right? As a little white kid living in a little all-white town in Idaho, I never felt like the Cosby kids were different in a race way from myself. I only remember being envious that those kids had parents who were still together, who loved each other, and that they had money for cool clothes and lived in a much nicer house than I'd ever been inside. The Cosby Show was so aspirational for so many kids like me, right? Growing up with that show. We wanted Dr. Huxtable to be our dad, like legitimately. And for Mrs. Huxtable to be our mom, and maybe not for Lisa Bonet, Denise to be our sister, so we could somehow date her. We wanted to be in that family, but also have Denise be kicked out of the family so we could make sweet love with Denise and she would stay with us forever. Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable became one of the most, if not the most popular dads in the U.S., earning Bill Cosby the title of America's Dad. Off camera, Cosby was a parental figure to his young co-stars, Sabrina LaBeouf, Lisa Bonet, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Tempest Bledsoe, Keisha Knight Pulliam, as well as Raven Simone and Erica Alexander. During the Cosby Show's run, Bill also appeared in several films such as Leonard Part 6 in 1987, Ghost Dad in 1990. Leonard Part 6, a spy parody, by the way, disaster. Considered by many critics to this day to be one of the worst big-budget films literally ever made in the history of Hollywood. But it didn't hurt Cosby's fame. In 1986, Bill published his book Fatherhood, which features his reflections on parenting. It sold millions of copies, New York Times bestseller. Guessing not a lot of people are buying it now. Time Flies, Bill's 1987 book on aging, written when he was 50, also had good sales. After The Cosby Show ended, Bill starred next in 19 episodes of The Cosby Mysteries in 1994 and 1995, where he played a criminologist who helps a detective. Also executive produced a TV show for his TV son, Theo Huxtable, Malcolm Jamal Warner, called Here and Now, that ran for one season in 1992. Malcolm Jamal, much more hesitant than Lisa Bonet, to condemn Bill when Bill went to prison for rape. He said, "The situation is so layered, man. I can't defend him or his actions at all, but I also can't throw him under the bus completely." What? Yeah, you can. Not that layered. You blatantly raped a whole bunch of women. That's something that's pretty easy to condemn. Like maybe one of the easiest things to condemn. Cosby also hosted some episodes of the long-running game show You Bet Your Life from September 7th, 1992 to June 4th, 1993. Critics were not that impressed with his performance on that show. Seemed to feel that it wasn't the right vehicle for him. 1996, Bill and his co-star, Felicia Rashad, who had played Claire Huxtable, team up together again for the show Cosby, which is completely unrelated, actually, to The Cosby Show, which is a little confusing. A two-sentence log line for this show describes it as follows. Hilton Lucas, Bill Cosby, was forced by his employer to retire. His wife, Felicia Rashad, has trouble with him always being at home, and so does he. Cosby premiered to a big audience, more than 24.7 million viewers, ran for 4 years, but did not enjoy the same success as The Cosby Show. As it went on, it just steadily lost viewers. Felicia has never condemned Cosby for his actions. In fact, after he was released from prison for a procedural error, an error that involved him admitting he drugged women, she tweeted, "A terrible wrong is being righted. A miscarriage of justice is corrected. Finally." All caps for that last word. Then, after the internet tore her a new asshole, she released the following politically correct, "This is what my publicist obviously told me to say" statement. "I fully support survivors of sexual assault coming forward. My post was in no way intended to be insensitive to their truth. Personally, I know from friends and family that such abuse has lifelong residual effects. My heartfelt wish is for healing." There you go. 1997, a tragic year for the Cosby family. Bill's roofie supplier passed away, and he was not able to do even a little tiny bit of raping, which led to him being super depressed and grumpy and barely any fun for his family to be around. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm pretty sure he kept raping in 1997. For every victim who's come forward, which is over 60 now, how many haven't? Studies, some little stat info here, studies into what percentage of rape victims report their assaults to police or otherwise publicly identify their attacker range tremendously from just under 1 in 20 to 1 in 3. And following that math, if over 60 women have accused Cosby of rape now, that would mean that another 120 plus to 1,200 plus have not come forward. That's fucking wild. Scary numbers. 1997 was, by the way, an actual tragic year for the Cosby family. January 16th of that year, Bill and Camille's only son, 27-year-old Ennis Cosby, fatally shot in the head while he was on a Los Angeles freeway ramp, changing a flat tire. At the time of his death, Ennis was a student at Columbia University working on his doctorate in special education. He really seemed like a great young man, wanted to create a school for children with learning disabilities. He was in Los Angeles visiting friends. Another driver would find his dead body on the side of the road. Ennis had his emergency light on and tire-changing equipment out. 2 months later in March, an acquaintance of Ennis's shooter provided information that led to his arrest. The killer was 18-year-old Michael Markasev. Markasev and two friends were at a nearby park and ride lot. Markasev, who was high, approached Ennis to rob him, then shot him when he took too long to hand over the money. Following year, in August of 1998, he was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. 3 years later, 2001, he confessed his guilt in a letter to the California Deputy Attorney General. He is still in prison today, and in 2022 said straight up in an interview I watched with the YouTube channel Between the Lines, quote, "I need to be in prison." He does seem pretty reformed, but yeah. Also in 1997, while the Cosby family was dealing with this tragic loss, a young woman named Autumn Jackson, the daughter of Bill's former lover, Sean Upshaw Brown, claimed Bill was her father and attempted to blackmail him out of $40 million. Sean will also be one of Cosby's accusers, claiming that the last 2 times they had sex, she had been drugged and did not consent to the encounters. Bill will admit he did have an affair with Jackson's mother, Sean, but will insist all of their sexual encounters were consensual and that he was not Jackson's father. And he has, to my knowledge, never been proven to be her dad. On July 25th, 1997, Autumn Jackson is convicted of attempted extortion, conspiracy, and crossing state lines to commit a crime. She is later sentenced to 26 months in prison. In a 2000 interview with Oprah, Camille said she was, of course, aware of the reports of the affair, but her focus was on her son's murder. When Oprah asked Camille if she was embarrassed by her husband's infidelity, Camille said, quote, "It was embarrassing in terms of it being an invasion of our private lives. That was something very personal between the two of us." Really, the affair itself wasn't embarrassing, though? Again, I just get the feeling that behind closed doors, Bill and Camille have a very unconventional marriage. It's not based in love. To me, it just feels like one where, Bill got to do virtually whatever he wanted, as long as, Camille raised the kids, and Camille was just, had to be content to share in all of that Cosby money and know that her husband was just constantly fucking around. But I am biased towards thinking that because in addition to really not liking Bill, I don't like Camille either, based on some outrageous statements I will share later that she made. Cosby continued working in publishing, show business in the late 90s and early 2000s. 1999, Bill published a book titled Congratulations, Now What? A Book for Graduates. Also in 1999, the 12th and final book in a series called Little Bill, written by Bill Cosby about adventures his dick goes on, that was illustrated by Varnett Honeywood, was published. The first book in the series was published in 1997. Oprah Winfrey chose 3 of the Little Bill books as selections for Oprah's Book Club in 1997, which marks the first time that children's books had been selected. Titles in the series included Little Bill Explores a Sleeping Giant's Lady Cave. Little Bill loses his raincoat, has to go see a doctor. Little Bill hides from the cops again. Little Bill threatens to ruin Big Bill's life again. We all know I made up those titles, right? I hope so. He did write those books, though, and they were selected by Oprah. I'll move on. The first of 2 seasons of a cartoon based on the books aired on Nickelodeon this time after a bunch of rape allegations went public later in 2014. The books will be pulled from schools and no longer printed, and reruns of that cartoon based on those books will no longer air on Nickelodeon. In the year 2000, Bill wrote American Schools, the $100 Billion Challenge. He's actually a very prolific author. 2003, Cosby and his daughter Erica wrote a book together titled Friends of a Feather, one of life's little fables. Also in 2003, Bill adds another award to his growing collection. He received the Bob Hope Humanitarian Award, given to an individual in the telecommunications industry for their philanthropic efforts. Previous year, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Huge honor. Later in 2009, Cosby will receive another huge honor, the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor, essentially the biggest award a comic can win. But let's not jump to 2009 so fast. Back in 2005, Cosby made headlines for a very different reason. For the first time, he was publicly accused of sexual assault. The accuser was 29-year-old Andrea Constand. Constand met Bill Cosby in November of 2002 when she was a coach for Temple University women's basketball. As an alumni, Bill was a big Temple supporter, active in the university community. The two met at a game. Of course, he's going to women's basketball games. Constand alleged that Cosby drugged and sexually assaulted her in January of 2004 at a home of his in Cheltenham Township, Pennsylvania. She claimed, and he was later found guilty of this in court, that she was complaining to Bill about how stressed out she had been recently. And then Dr. Huxtable, America's dad, he is 66 at this point, she is 30, gave her 3 blue pills to help her relax. She trusted Bill. She'd been to his home for numerous dinner parties and private dinners related to Temple's basketball program before. He was a huge supporter of the team and the school. He seemed like a big supporter of her as well. She trusted him. The pills she took left her semi-conscious and unable to move. She recalled as she was passing out, Cosby touching her breasts and crotch and grabbing her hand and putting it on his dick. She passed out, woke up around 4 a.m. to find her clothing all over the room. Cosby later said that they had a consensual sexual encounter. Making his claim even harder to believe is the fact that Andrea is and was openly gay, not bisexual, but gay, and Andrea had a girlfriend at the time. So Bill was claiming that, he is just so fucking incredible with women, so sexy, with his chubby ass and his fucking wonky pudding pop eye, that she could not resist his not even in the ballpark of fit 66-year-old body. That doesn't add up. That doesn't add up at all. Andrea said that she didn't talk about the assault for a year, but it had like he was the guy that made her change her sexual preference. She's like, I've only been attracted to women, but fuck, Bill Cosby's hot. No. Andrea said that she didn't talk about the assault for a year, but it had a significant negative impact on her life during that time. On March 31st, 2004, Andrea Constand left her position as Director of Operations for Temple University's women's basketball team, returned to her hometown of Toronto in Canada, thanks to depression and PTSD related to the assault. Meanwhile, Bill Cosby continues to enjoy his successful career because bad people get away with shit all the time and good people suffer because life's not fair. On May 17th of that year, Bill gave a speech at the NAACP award ceremony, which led to a speaking tour called A Call Out with Bill Cosby at college campuses and churches across the country. Oh, fuck yeah. Bring that motherfucker to schools and churches. Hell yeah. Let his rapey ass preach about how we should all live righteous lives according to his advice. Let him talk about all he's done for black people after he's been raping women for decades, many of whom have been black. What a voice for the voiceless. What a noble champion of the people. Oh, America's dad. January 13, 2005, after suffering from recurring nightmares and a flashback that triggered her memory of Cosby's rape, Andrea Constand said she finally told her mom that Bill Cosby had drugged and sexually assaulted her. And a week later, January 22nd, Constand filed a police report with the Durham Regional Police outside of Toronto, which initiated a criminal investigation by Montgomery County detectives in Cheltenham Township. Bill was interviewed by Cheltenham Police Chief John Norris. Norris later told Vanity Fair that Bill was, quote, cooperative, congenial. He came in wearing the typical Cosby sweater. I was asking the question, and I thought Cosby was a gentleman. I don't think he was evasive. He answered every question I put to him. He said it was a consensual sexual encounter. That summarizes it. Just a friendly gentleman, married, senior citizen in a nice sweater, coming into the station to discuss his consensual sexual encounter with a lesbian coach of a women's basketball team, a woman 36 years younger than him. No red flags there to be noticed. Oh, good work, Police Chief Norris. You're fucking awesome at what you do. 3 days after the investigation started, Cosby called Andrea Constand and apologized. And now it's all better. Everyone knows that if you rape, the way to make it all better is to call that person up and say, hey, sorry about raping you. And then everything's cool again, right? Sorry about that. I didn't even think about how you being unconscious, when we fucked might be a problem. My bad. Let's go grab coffee. Although he apologized, which is so fucking gross, he declined to identify the pills he gave her that night, suggested the sex was consensual to her. Constand's testimony will be discussed in further detail as we move further down the timeline. Also in 2005, February 10th, attorney Tamara Green spoke to the Today Show, alleged that Cosby sexually assaulted her in the 1970s. Today Show anchor at the time, Matt Lauer, who will himself be fired from the Today Show in 2017 for credible allegations that he anally raped a colleague in 2014, for fuck's sake, asked why she waited 30 years to come forward. And Green said, quote, I heard that there had been a sexual assault and that by itself didn't prompt me to come forward. But then I heard that this woman had been given pills, was in a position of trust and friendship with this man, and that behind the pills, he took her clothes off and groped her and what have you. I thought, after all these years, it's the same MO, the same old story, and I still didn't come forward. But when I heard it reported that the district attorney had said that the story was weak, that she had not come forward in a timely fashion, that was for me them saying that they were not going to file the case, that they didn't believe her. It was at that time I decided that if there were only two of us, one a long time ago and one right now, then that's too many. Man, good for her. What a terrible secret to hold for all those years. Green said she met Cosby while at a working lunch at a restaurant in Los Angeles. She had the flu at the time. Cosby noticed she was sick, asked if she wanted Contact, a brand of cold medicine. Green said yes. Cosby went into an office area at the back of the restaurant, returned with 2 capsules. Green took them. 20 to 30 minutes later, she felt, quote, great, but, quote, about 10 minutes after that, I was almost literally face down on the table of this restaurant. According to Green, Cosby said something to the effect of, oh my, you must be more ill than we believed. Green explained, quote, I totally lost motor control. I was almost unable to hold my head up. I was very, very stoned. He took me to my apartment and then very helpfully and nicely was prepared to take off my clothes and help me into bed and pet me, and that's how the actual assault began. Matt Lauer asked if Green was able to speak to tell Cosby no. And Green said, well, at first when I got into my apartment and I was so, I don't know how sick I was or how stoned I was, but I slowly began to understand that I had not taken contact. And then she continued, I actually told him that he would have to kill me, that if he didn't kill me and he tried to rape me, I was going to go very badly, or it was going to go very badly. And I was furious. I'm throwing things around. So he, I guess it was inconvenient at that point. I had not been crushed successfully into submission, and he left $200 bills on my coffee table, and he left my apartment. She didn't call the police right away. At first, it was because she was sick. She also felt like no one would believe her because, quote, this is the great Bill Cosby. He has tremendous wealth, power, a PR machine, a reputation. He is Mr. Jello. But the worst thing you feel is stupid. There's a shame element involved. Soon after the attack, her brother became terminally ill. Bill Cosby went to the hospital to meet some pediatric patients, including her brother, and gave them gifts. And then he died soon afterwards. Her brother did, and she did not want to take away this positive experience with her family. Green said that Bill probably didn't even remember her name, adding, "And the fact that I told people close in time the exact details of this story, which so much matched the details of the new victim, is the reason that I decided to come forward. I heard them say about her that it didn't happen, that it's preposterous that Bill Cosby would do such a thing. Well, it's not preposterous. He did it to me." Cosby's lawyer responded to her claims saying, "Miss Green's allegations are absolutely false. Mr. Cosby does not know the name Tamara Green or Tamara Lucier, and the incident she describes did not happen. The fact that she may have repeated this story to others is not corroboration." And before moving forward, Matt Lauer would, by the way, admit to having an extramarital but consensual sexual encounter with the woman who claimed he sodomized her without consent. Then a second woman would claim that Matt raped her in his office. Seems like he may have slipped her something as well because she said she passed out during the encounter. A third woman, another coworker, claimed that Matt whipped his dick out in front of her in his office. And a fourth coworker claimed that Matt gave her a sex toy as a birthday gift, complete with a note on how he wanted to use it on her. And it is that kind of shit that's what led to the very much needed Me Too movement. Back to Cosby now. February 17, 2005, Montgomery County DA Bruce L. Castro Jr. announced that he would not file charges against Cosby due to, quote, insufficient, credible, and admissible evidence. So on March 8, 2005, Andrea Constand now filed a civil suit against Cosby. Her suit included depositions from 13 other Jane Does who claimed they had also been sexually assaulted by Cosby. A few months later, June 23, 2005, Beth Ferrier, previously known as Jane Doe number 5, revealed her identity to the Philadelphia Daily News. She alleged that during her, quote, brief affair with Cosby in 1984, he drugged her coffee and sexually assaulted her. In the fall of 2005, Cosby gave 4 days of depositions as part of this lawsuit. The details of his deposition will be kept secret for a decade, and I'll share some of those details later in the timeline. June 6, 2006, in a radio interview with Howard Stern, supermodel Janice Dickinson called Cosby, quote, a bad guy who preys on women. But still, none of this really makes national news, and his career continues unscathed for the time being. November 8, 2006, Constand's lawyers reached a settlement with Cosby, the amount not disclosed at the time. The settlement meant Constand's 13 witnesses would not get the chance to testify. While People magazine spoke to 5 of the women, shared 3 of their stories in their December 2006 issue. People noted that cases were, or an issue of theirs in December 2006. People noted that the cases were several decades old, and the victims did not contact the police, and that 2 out of the 5 accusers allowed Cosby to pay all or part of their traveling/living expenses for some time. 3 accepted cash from him years later. 2 also had consensual sex relationships with him. The article also said, quote, their stories, which take place in several cities and span 2 decades, illustrate the same pattern of behavior. Primarily the accusation that Cosby targeted them because they were vulnerable and gained their trust by promising to help their careers. Accuser Barbara Bowman first told her story to Philadelphia magazine in November of 2006. Back in 2005, she was an 18-year-old model who wanted to get into acting. Her agent arranged a meeting with Bill Cosby, who was 48 at the time, so 48 versus 18. She was overwhelmed with excitement, she said. They first met at a comedy club in Denver. And Bowman recalled, he questioned me quite extensively about my personal history, my relationship with my father. My father had abandoned me when I was 14. In hindsight, I look back and I realized what he was doing. He was getting information of where my vulnerabilities lay. And if that's what he was really doing, and I personally think it probably was, how fucking dark is that? To find out exactly how someone has been hurt so you can hurt them even more in order to fulfill your own wildly selfish, fucked up sexual desires. Cosby also asked her to do disturbing acting exercise. He asked her to imagine she was drunk or drugged and not in control of herself. He wanted her to slump in her chair, and then he could whisper what he wanted in her ear. Just a little cringy. Bowman's agent later arranged for her to move to New York City, and Cosby continued to mentor her. Bowman claimed that one evening in 1986, Cosby assaulted her in a hotel room in Reno. She said, quote, he took my hand and his hand over it, and he masturbated with his hand over my hand. She said she kept quiet because she thought no one would believe her, and she continued to be Cosby's protege. Later, in another incident, she was alone with Cosby in his Manhattan townhome. He gave her a glass of wine and, quote, the next thing I know, I'm sick, and I'm nauseous, and I'm delusional, and I'm limp, and I can't think straight. And I just came to, and I'm wearing a men's t-shirt that wasn't mine, and he was in a white robe. said she had no idea what happened while she was out, but, strongly assumed that she was raped. A month or two later, they were in Atlantic City where Bowman drank another glass of drugged wine. Said she returned to her room. Next day, Cosby called her to his suite, and she said, quote, threw me on the bed and braced his arm under my neck so I couldn't move my head, and he started trying to take his clothes off. I remember all the clinking of his belt buckle, and he was trying to take my pants down, and I was trying to keep them on. Because she resisted him now on this occasion, when she wasn't drugged, she said Cosby cut off all contact with her. Had her escorted to the airport for a flight back to Denver, and she didn't tell the police, but she did go to an attorney, but then the attorney did not take her seriously. The second woman who spoke to People magazine was Tamara Green, whose story we heard earlier in the timeline. Third was Beth Ferrier, former model. I believe we've met her already as well. So I've been going over this a ton of times, and there's so many names. Ferrier's agent, Joe Farrell, who was also Barbara Bowman's agent, introduced her to Bill Cosby in the mid-'80s. Ferrier's father died, and she had just survived a serious car crash. She was in a vulnerable place in her life. Cosby appeared to be a mentor/father figure to her. One night, she said she was in his dressing room in Denver again, drank a cappuccino, and then she blacked out. And then she woke up in her car with her clothes in disarray. She's still not sure what happened. She says, all I had to drink was coffee, and the room was spinning. Then I wake up with my clothes a mess, my bra unhooked. I still wonder, what did he do with me? Why was my bra unhooked? What happened? When she asked Cosby about it, all he said was, quote, we'll never speak of this again. Oh, America's Dad, wholesome comic, clean comedy. Ferrier got divorced in 1985, and for reasons I'm guessing not even she fully understands, she began an on and off consensual affair with Cosby for several years. She said, quote, he kept luring me in. I felt like I couldn't say no. People asked her former agent, Joe Farrell, about introducing women to Cosby. She said she only supplied Cosby with tapes and portfolios of her clients, adding, quote, he wanted to look at children and girls for his show. I wasn't in on personal interviews. Despite these allegations, Cosby's career continues unharmed. It seemed that the overwhelming majority of the public who heard about the sexual assault accusations just assumed these women were opportunists, gold diggers, coming after somebody with money, and not actually victims. And I imagine most people did not want to believe that America's Dad, Mr. Cliff Huxtable himself, Mr. fucking Jello Pudding Pop, hey, Fat Albert, could have done that shit. November of 2013, Bill returned to stand up very briefly. He appeared in the Comedy Central special titled Far From Finished. Well, he actually be pretty close to being finished here. It was his first concert special in 3 decades. It was, fairly well received. By the end of the very next year, accusations of sexual misconduct resurfaced. And this time, dozens more women will come forward. And another black comic will be the reason that these women's claims become national news. October 16, 2014, very funny comic, Hannibal Buress. I've met him a few times over the years. He has always seemed to be a genuinely good dude. Performed in Philadelphia and mocked Cosby as a part of his routine. He'd been doing this joke about Cosby for about 6 months. But this time, somebody finally recorded it, uploaded it, and got some buzz, and it went viral. Here is Hannibal's bit. I think it's best for you to hear it directly from him, but the audio is pretty terrible, so if you don't understand what he's saying, don't even worry about it. I will read a transcript of what he said directly afterwards.
Has the fucking smuggest old black man public persona that I hate. This kid's on TV. Pull your pants up, black people. I was on TV in the 80s. I can talk down to you because I had a successful sitcom. Yeah, it was great women, Bill Cosby, so kind of brings it down a couple notches. I don't curse on stage. But yeah, you're a rapist, so it would take you saying lots of motherfuckers on Bill Cosby himself if you weren't a rapist. For the most part, it's fucking public Teflon image. I've done this bit on stage, and people don't believe. People think I'm making it up. I'm like, Bill Cosby, there's a lot of rape allegations. No, you devil. That shit is upsetting. If you didn't know about it, trust me. If you leave here, Google Bill Cosby rape. It's not funny. This shit has more.
Okay, so here's what he says. Or here's what you just heard. He said, 13, and it's even worse because Bill Cosby has the fucking smuggest old black man public persona that I hate. Pull your pants up, black people. I was on TV in the 80s. I can talk down to you because I had a successful sitcom. Yeah, but you raped women, Bill Cosby, so that brings you down a couple notches. I don't curse on stage. Well, yeah, you're a rapist, so I'll take you saying lots of motherfuckers on Bill Cosby himself if you weren't a rapist. I want to just at least make it weird for you to watch Cosby Show reruns. I've done this bit on stage and people don't believe. People think I'm making it up. That shit is upsetting. If you didn't know about it, trust me. You leave here and Google Bill Cosby rape. It's not funny. That shit has more results than Hannibal Buress. That is a pretty funny punchline there. In a June 2015 interview with GQ, Buress opened up about his shocked reaction to the fallout from his joke. He said, quote, "You can't predict like that. Like that, something's going to happen like that." When pressed by the interviewer, he rejected the idea of being a, quote, feminist hero for helping give a voice to Cosby's accusers, including former models Beverly Johnson and Janice Dickinson. He said, people are going to put you on whatever they want to put you on. People are going to put on you whatever they want to put on you. It is conflicting because people think I'm like this amazing guy or something. I'm a decent guy. I love his raw honesty and humility there. Backing up to just before Hannibal's bit goes viral. On October 27th, 2014, Barbara Bowman, who we just met, had given a detailed account of her experience with Bill Cosby with the Daily Mail, and the interview is part of the Google results that Hannibal was referring to. Bowman said, "I was drugged and raped by that man. He is a monster. He came at me like a monster." Bowman told the Daily Mail she never took a payment from Cosby, which gave her, in her words, the freedom to speak out. She said, "My motivation to speak out now is to expose Bill Cosby as the animal he is. He went after me in that hotel room like an animal with such sexual prowess and force that he couldn't control himself. And at 19 years old, I knew it would be the last time he would ever get that chance to hurt me this way again." November 10th, 2014 now. As Hannibal's bit is going viral, Cosby's PR team begins a, quote, concerted effort to counter the negative press, and they do something so dumb. They launch an online Bill Cosby meme generator, and holy shit, does this backfire. Cosby posted meme me on Twitter with a link to this meme generator, and then Twitter users responded in mass with thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of memes referencing the rape claims, and Cosby's and team then removes the meme generator. I found a bunch of these. A lot of images of Cosby dressed up like a doctor, playing Dr. Huxtable from the Cosby Show, with shit written on the image like, "What you need is some rest. These pills should do the trick." Or, "Didn't even say hello to get in your jello." Or, "I love putting my dick where it don't belong." That was one of my favorite ones. There's also an out-of-focus image of him with text that says, "If you're seeing this, it's too late." Yeah, just hundreds and thousands of memes like this. And I hope Bill saw all of them, that piece of shit. November 13th, 2014, accuser Barbara Bowman releases an op-ed in the Washington Post titled, "Bill Cosby Raped Me. Why did it take 30 years for people to believe my story?" In the article, Bowman notes that she spoke out years earlier in 2006, but her complaint, quote, didn't seem to take hold. She added that she was grateful the clip of Hannibal Buress brought new attention to Cosby's crimes, but, quote, "I must ask my own questions. Why wasn't I believed? Why didn't I get the same reaction of shock and revulsion when I originally reported it?" Cosby refuses to address these allegations in an NPR segment that airs November 15, 2014. The interview focused on Bill and Camille's loan of 60 art pieces to the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art. And during the interview, reporter Scott Simon says, "This question gives me no pleasure, Mr. Cosby, but there have been serious allegations raised about you in recent days." Cosby does not reply, just stares at him silently. Simon continues, "You're shaking your head no. I'm in the news business. I have to ask a question. Do you have any response to those charges?" Cosby remains silent, and then Simon thanks him for the interview and ends it. Just a little awkward. November 16th, 2014, a new accuser comes forward. Journalist and publicist Joan Tarshish tells CNN that Cosby had drugged and sexually assaulted her on two different occasions back in 1969. Interestingly, that year, Cosby had released his album titled It's True, It's True. And on one of his routines, he talks about sipping the mythical aphrodisiac Spanish fly, or slipping it, not sipping it, slipping it into women's drinks. Oh, this is not good, not a good look. Here's a bit of this bit.
When I was 13, man, start talking about weird things. No, really, stand on a corner. "You know anything about Spanish fly?" "What? Spanish fly?" It always happens when you're 13. Only when you're 13 on up to like when you get married. Guys stand around and talk about Spanish fly, and it never starts with one of the guys on the corner. It's always some strange 13-year-old that says, "You know what? You know anything about Spanish fly?" "No, tell me about it." "Well, there's this girl, Crazy Mary. You put some in her drink, man. She, yeah, Spanish, oh yeah, that's really groovy, man. Spanish fly is groovy, yeah, boy." From then on, man, anytime you see a girl, "What's your no Spanish fly, boy?" Go to a party, see 5 girls standing alone. "Boy, if I had a whole jug of Spanish fly, I'd light that corner up over there."
Yeah. How fucking disturbing is that shit? Cosby was a very autobiographical comic. And I'm talking about his comedy in the past tense now, because I think his days of performing as a comic are over. He talked about Spanish Fly again while promoting a book on Larry King Live in 1991. That's fucking even more cringy.
Spanish Fly was the thing that all boys from age 11 on up to death, we will still be searching for Spanish Fly. That's right. And what was the old story was, if you took a little drop, no, it was on the head of a pin.
That's right.
And
Drop
you put
it
it
in
in
a
the drink.
Coca-Cola. Don't matter.
It doesn't make it, and the girl would drink it, and
she's yours.
Hello, America.
Fuck. How fucking gross are Larry King's reactions there? What the fuck is happening? November, it's not like that was, I don't know, fucking 1,000 years ago. I mean, it still would have been gross, but like 1991? What are you guys doing? November 16th, 2014, day after Joan Tarshish comes forward, Linda Joy Traits, a former waitress at a restaurant where Cosby was a partial owner, posted on Facebook accusing Cosby of attempting to drug her in the early 70s. 2 days later, November 18th, supermodel Janice Dickinson now speaks to Entertainment Tonight, tells them that Cosby drugged and raped her back in 1982. Another 2 days later, November 20th, 2014, Teresa Serenese comes forward, accuses Cosby of drugging, assaulting her in 1976 when she was 19 and he was 39. Bill's attorneys dismissed the women's claims as, quote, decades-old, discredited accounts. But the next day, November 21st, more women come forward, including Carla Ferrigno, wife and manager of Incredible Hulk actor Lou Ferrigno. She accused Cosby of attacking her as a teenager. Man, I would fucking love to see Lou Ferrigno attack Bill Cosby now. Lou's 73 years old, but he still looks strong as fuck. That's a pay-per-view fight I would pay a stupid amount of money to watch. Might just give like the kids college funds to watch that. 73-year-old Lou Ferrigno versus 87-year-old Bill Cosby. Oh my God. Ideally a death match. Also, only because I know that fucking Ferrigno would just tear him apart. Also on November 21st, the National Enquirer released an audio recording of Bill Cosby speaking about accusations back in 2005 after Tamara Green came forward. Cosby was recorded as saying, quote, who really wants to put his or her family in a position of information coming out publicly that will cause great emotional stress? Challenge. The choices that the family, friends have made in looking at him or her as a good person, a wonderful person, a person to be trusted, end quote. Cosby complained that the media reports about him lawyering up were unfair, saying, I guess that a celebrity trying to protect him or herself is not supposed to use every ounce of protection. But this is all about celebrity, period. Which means that the celebrity, period, should know better. It's a fair warning to the celebrity. Fair warning. Yeah, but so many celebrities don't get accused of this shit. November 23rd, 2014, 90-year-old former NBC employee Frank Scotti tells the New York Daily News that many years earlier, decades earlier, he paid off multiple victims on Cosby's behalf. He said he arranged meetings, cash payments, apartments, and more with models and other women during the Cosby Show's run on the network between 1984 and 1992, excuse me. So while he's Dr. Huxtable, just, loving family guy, he is just fucking around on his wife left and right. Scotti provided copies of money orders worth thousands and thousands of dollars made out to 8 women between 1989 and 1990. Said he eventually stopped doing it because he was uncomfortable with what he called a cover-up. And he said he finally decided to come forward because he felt sorry for the women. Now, finally, Cosby starts to pay the price for what he did. Various universities and other organizations start to rescind honorary degrees and awards and end associations with him. November 30th, 2014, Cosby victim Beverly Johnson writes an essay for Vanity Fair accusing Cosby of drugging her in the mid-'80s. Beverly Johnson, one of the top models in the nation, if not the world, in the 1970s and 80s. The first black woman to appear on the cover of American Vogue in 1974. And I would like to preface what she's about to say by saying it's not like she came forward because her career was in the toilet and she needed publicity to get it, going again. No, she's 72 today, still modeling at a very high level, still appearing on the covers of prestigious magazines, still ridiculously gorgeous and just, elegant. In my opinion, she's just consistently exudes class. There's a regal air about her, and she was doing well at this time. And in her essay, she wrote that she felt guilty about not coming forward years earlier. She said it was complicated. She'd grown up watching Bill Cosby. He's a fucking hero in her community. She doesn't want to bring a black man down. In the mid-'80s, Beverly's agent called to inform her that Bill wanted her to audition for The Cosby Show. Because his character played an obstetrician, he sometimes used models to play pregnant women sitting in the waiting room. It was a small part, just a couple of speaking lines, but Beverly thought it, would be a good opportunity for She was invited to a taping, met with Bill in his office to talk. He asked what she wanted for her career, and he seemed interested in offering her career guidance. Beverly then brought her daughter to the next taping. Afterwards, Bill asked if she could meet him at his home and that weekend to read for the part. He even suggested that she bring her daughter. So it didn't seem like he was doing anything creepy. Just a helpful guy. Just America's dad doing some good old dadding. They went to his New York brownstone, were served brunch by his staff. Cosby gave them a tour of his home. Beverly wrote, looking back, that first invite from Cosby to his home seems like part of a perfectly laid out plan, a way to make me feel secure with him at all times. And it worked like a charm. A few days later, he suggested that she come back again, so she did. And this time, she did not bring her daughter. They ate dinner together and then went upstairs to this living area. They had a bar. Bill had an espresso machine, which was rare at the time. He explained he wanted to see how she handled different types of scenes, so he suggested that she pretend to be drunk. She said she followed along for the acting exercise. Bill then offered her a cappuccino from his espresso machine. She said she didn't drink coffee at night, but he insisted she try it. She didn't want to argue with him, so she took a few sips to appease him, and then she wrote that she had experimented with drugs before and knew by her second sip that she had been drugged. She said, quote, "My head became woozy, my speech became slurred, and the room began to spin nonstop. Cosby motioned for me to come over to him as though we were really about to act out the scene. He put his hands around my waist, and I managed to put my hand on his shoulder in order to steady myself. As I felt my body go completely limp, my brain switched into automatic survival mode. That meant making sure Cosby understood that I knew exactly what was happening at that very moment." She said, and I love this, she said she shouted at Cosby, quote, "You are a motherfucker, aren't you?" Beverly continued shouting expletives at him, which angered him. Everybody knows Bill does not care for profanity. He likes you to work clean. Clean comedy, clean conversations. He especially likes the women he's trying to rape to be clean, right? It really offends him to have them speak profanely. Turns him off. He grabbed Beverly's arm, dragged her out of his home, shoved her into a taxi without saying a word, she said. She has no memory of how she got into her apartment or into her bed. Took a few days, she said, for the drugs to fully wear off. Man, whatever he gave her was fucking strong. She got that from a few sips. Once she recovered, Beverly went to California for an audition. She felt the need to confront Bill, and she decided to call him, but his wife answered. She asked to speak to Bill. Camille told her that it was late. They were in bed together. Beverly then apologized for forgetting the time difference, said she'd call back tomorrow, but she never did. She said, "At a certain moment, it became clear that I would be fighting a losing battle with a powerful man. So callous, he not only drugged me, but also gave me the number to the bedroom he shared with his wife. In the end, just like the other women, I had too much to lose to go after Bill Cosby." And there's something fucking weird about her answering and just being so calm, too. I don't like either one of these people, Bill or Camille. For a long time, she said she thought she was the only victim until other women came forward. December 1st, 2014, Bill Cosby resigns from Temple University's Board of Trustees, under pressure to do so. 2 days later, December 3rd, Bill Cosby breaks months of silence on Twitter to thank comic, host, and actress Whoopi Goldberg and singer/songwriter Jill Scott for their support of him. Whoopi would receive death threats for standing by Cosby. By July of 2015, she will change her stance and now say she believes his accusers. Also in the summer of 2015, Jill Scott will change her stance as well and say, "I stood by a man I respected and loved and I was wrong." She will also tweet on July 6, 2015 about Bill Cosby. Sadly, his own testimony offers all caps proof of terrible deeds, which is all I have ever required to believe the accusations. So, good on Whoopi and Jill. I mean, that motherfucker duped them like he had duped so many other people. December 2nd, victim Judy Huth files a civil suit against Cosby alleging he forced her to perform a sexual act on him in 1974 when she was only 15 years old. She said she traveled with Mr. Cosby to the Playboy Mansion in 1974, when she was just 15. He was 38. That alone is so fucking creepy. Where she said she came out of the bathroom to find the entertainer sitting on a bed in an isolated adjoining room. He patted the seat next to him, she said. I sat down. He tried to lean me back. He tried to kiss me. He tried to put his hands underneath my belly button where my high-waisted pants were to deflect him. Mrs. Huth said she told Mr. Cosby she was on her period. And then she said he pulled his sweats down, grabbed my hand, put it over his hand, closed it, and forced her to perform a sex act on him. 2 days after she went public with this accusation, Cosby filed a countersuit, claiming she was suing after a failed extortion attempt. Cosby claimed Huff's lawyer approached his lawyer in November of 2014, demanded $100,000 for his silence, later increasing the amount to $250,000 after more women came forward. Cosby's suit also alleged that Huff tried to sell her story to the tabloids a decade earlier and was now claiming she repressed the memory until recently. The document noted that Huff alleged she and Cosby participated in a drinking game and both consumed 3 beers, but, quote, it is well known and easily verifiable that Mr. Cosby is a lifelong non-drinker. That's actually not easily verifiable. You can say you're a lifelong drinker or non-drinker, and you can secretly have as many fucking drinks as you want. I doubt he has been sober all these years. I bet that claim is just another part of his fake goody two-shoes. I'm such a fucking harmless teddy bear, gentle, good guy, public persona. Cosby's lawyer issues a statement on December 13th that he won't dignify these allegations with any response. Or actually, I'm sorry, in early December. I don't have the exact date for that statement. But then, on December 13th, Cosby tells the New York Post, let me say this. I expect the black media to uphold the standards of excellence in journalism. And when you do that, you have to go in with a neutral mind. That's fucked up. If you go after me, you're fucking Uncle Tom's, is what he's saying there. That's so fucking manipulative. Why is he making that about race? So gross when so many black men historically have actually been framed in America specifically for rape. To bring that history into his bullshit, to me, shows what kind of dude he really is. Just a guy with no honor. His lawyers advised him not to address the allegations, but he did say about his wife, Camille, love and strength of womanhood. Let me say it again. Love and strength of womanhood. And you could reverse it. The strength of womanhood and love. Okay. Thank you for that profound gibberish, Bill. That was great. Camille Cosby issued a statement December 15th, 2014. I met my husband, Bill Cosby, in 1963. We were married in 1964. The man I met and fell in love with, and whom I continue to love, is the man you all knew through his work. He is a kind man, a generous man, a funny man, and a wonderful husband, father, and friend. He is the man you thought you knew. A different man has been portrayed in the media over the past 2 months. It is the portrait of a man I do not know. It is also a portrait painted by individuals and organizations whom many in the media have given a pass. There appears to be no vetting of my husband's accusers before stories are published or aired. An accusation is published and immediately goes viral. We all follow the story of the article in the Rolling Stone concerning allegations of rape at the University of Virginia. The story was heartbreaking, but ultimately appears to be proved to be untrue. Many in the media were quick to link that story to stories about my husband until that story unwound. None of us will ever want to be in the position of attacking a victim, but the question should be asked, who is the victim? Okay, I mean, she, that is a good argument, but when she wrote that, at the very least, she knew he had been wildly unfaithful for decades. So get the fuck out of here with this, he's a great husband, he's the man you thought you knew bullshit. No, he isn't. His public persona, his comedy act was just that, an act. It was not he doesn't, appear publicly to be this philandering dude. No, he appears to be like this nerdy fucking sweater wearing, I'm a, do whatever my wife says kind of dude. He was always a phony. December 16, 2014, the Los Angeles DA's office declined to charge Cosby in response to Judy Huss's allegations, citing the statute of limitations. Cosby's daughter, Evan, issued a statement to Access Hollywood saying, he is the father you thought you knew. The Cosby Show was my today's, it's kind of weird how she phrased it. The Cosby Show was my today's TV reality show. Thank you. That's all I would like to say. I'm going to give Evan a pass because, parents are able to hide all sorts of shit from their kids. She's another victim. After the allegations surfaced, NBC and Netflix announced they were dropping projects they had with Cosby. His 2015 stand-up comeback tour is canceled. Also in 2015, more women come forward with claims of sexual assaults. Ultimately, there will now be dozens of accusers. January 7th, 2015, Felicia Rashad, Cosby's former co-star, clarifies some remarks she had made defending him. She explained that in all their years working together, she just never witnessed any of the behavior described by the accusers. In an interview with ABC, she said, what you're seeing is the destruction of a legacy, and I think it's orchestrated. I don't know why or who's doing it, but it's a legacy, and it's a legacy that is so important to the culture. That same day, lawyer Gloria Allred held a press conference, introduced 3 new accusers, including a woman previously known as Victim 6, now identified as Kelly Johnson. Following month, February 12, 2015, 2 former models come forward to accuse Cosby of sexual misconduct. Linda Brown was 21, she says, when she met Cosby for dinner in 1969. Says he persuaded her to go to his hotel room, said he had a gift for her. She said he gave her a soda when she got to his room and it caused her to black out. When she woke up, she was naked in bed next to him, and then he flipped her over and sexually assaulted her. Makes me think of that fucking Spanish fly routine we heard a bit of. A routine he would have been performing at the time. Second model, Lisa Latte Lublin, 23 years old, had already met Cosby twice before she said she was assaulted in Las Vegas in 1989. He would have been 52 at that time. She said Cosby asked her to do some improv, and during their meeting, he gave her 2 alcoholic beverages that made her feel dizzy and disoriented. Her memory was fuzzy, but she remembered that he straddled her and petted her hair, and then she passed out completely. And when she woke hours later, she was home, and her car was in her driveway, and she had no recollection of how she got there. March 13, 2015, Lisa Latte asked Nevada legislators to rescind the state's statute on limitations on sexual assault. She wanted to file criminal charges, and while her request, that was a weird way to pronounce that, and while her request will not be granted at that time, it will be granted years later. I'll get to that later in the timeline. 2 days later, May 15th, 2015, Cosby gives an exclusive interview with ABC. At the time of the interview, he was in Alabama preparing to, quote, rape a whole bunch of students. No, I meant to say he was in Alabama to speak to a whole bunch of students. He expected backlash, saying, I think that many of them may say, well, you are a hypocrite. You say one thing, you say another. My point is, okay, listen to me carefully. I'm telling you where the road is out. I'm telling you where, as you drive, you are going to go into the water. Now, you want to go here, or you want to be concerned about who is giving you the message? I feel like he speaks a little cryptically sometimes. I do see what he's saying. But, how about those students get some good life messages from, I don't know, one of the many, many, many other black men who have come from nothing and made it, so to speak, who haven't, had fucking dozens of allegations of sexual assault, put on them. Many of the assaults happening to women of college age. The fuck? May 20, 2015, model Janice Dickinson files suit against Cosby after his team claimed she lied when accusing him of sexually assaulting her in 1982. She claimed regarding that assault that Cosby flew her all the way from a shoot in Bali to his home in Nevada. He had so many homes to discuss. I mean, he was worth like $400 million to discuss her working on the Cosby Show. During this meeting, she complained about menstrual cramps, and he offered her a glass of red wine and a pill, she said. She trusted Cosby, right? Dr. Huxtable. So she took the pill. Dickinson told CNN that she then started to lose consciousness. She remembered Bill getting on top of her, and, quote, I remember more specifically waking up and that there was a lot of pain downstairs. There was semen all over me, and my pajama bottoms were off, and the top was opened. At that point, fight or flight, I just packed up and got the hell out of there. In her complaint, she specified that Cosby penetrated her both vaginally and anally without her consent, that motherfucker. And like fellow supermodel Beverly Johnson, her coming forward with this information didn't help her career, and she was doing great. She was fucking killing it in reality TV at this time, still modeling at a high level, making a lot of money when she made this allegation. July 6, 2015, federal judge grants the Associated Press's request to unseal court documents from 2005, which included Bill Cosby's deposition in the Andrea Constand lawsuit. According to ABC, Constand had previously filed a motion to have the deposition unsealed because Cosby violated a non-disclosure agreement by responding to newly surfaced allegations. In the now unsealed deposition, Cosby admitted that he had obtained prescription Quaaludes in the 1970s for the purpose of giving them to women he wanted to have sex with. Fuck. I'm going to repeat that. He admitted he obtained prescription Quaaludes in the 70s specifically for the purpose of giving them to women he wanted to fuck. Again, I think of his fucked up Spanish fly bit. Cosby said in his deposition, quote, I used them the same as a person would say, have a drink. Yeah, but he didn't tell him really what it was. He just gave him a pill. Cosby did not state whether he gave women drugs without their knowledge, only due to his attorney's objection, seemingly. But he admitted he asked a modeling agency to connect him to young women who were specifically, quote, new in town and not doing well financially. So fucking gross. The New York Times obtained and released portions of the 1,000-page transcript of Cosby's deposition. The Times reported that Cosby spoke in a casual and indifferent tone, and that, quote, the entertainer comes across as alternately annoyed, mocking, occasionally charming, and sometimes boastful, often blithely describing sexual encounters in graphic detail. When insisting his encounter with Andrea Constand was consensual, he said, quote, I think I'm a pretty decent reader of people and their emotions and these romantic sexual things, whatever you want to call them. He was asked if he thought one of the women he gave Quaaludes to, Teresa Serenese, was able to consent to sex, and he responded, quote, "I don't know." Cosby indicated he personally did not like to take the Quaaludes himself because they made him sleepy. Yeah, motherfucker, they make everyone sleepy. That's exactly why you gave them to these women. He also detailed how he seduced/manipulated women. In the case of Andrea Constand, he said he invited her to his house, talked to her about her personal life, growth, education, acted as a mentor to her. He admitted he tried to hide his affairs from his wife by doing things like paying Teresa Serenese off, by blocking a tabloid article about another accuser, etc. Cosby said that during his courtship of Andrea Constand, they had an intimate meal alone at his home in Pennsylvania. He said they got close, but he didn't try to kiss her because he didn't think she wanted him to. And then at their next dinner, they had a, quote, sexual moment, but didn't have sex. He explained, this fucking kills me. This is the most ridiculous shit. He explained that he did not like to have sex with these women because, get this, he didn't want these women to fall in love with him. My God. I cannot see Bill fucking Cosby, 66-year-old fucking flabby ass pudding pop Cosby, being such an incredible, legendary lover that this young, super fit, also lesbian as a reminder, basketball coach, again, is going to fall in fucking love with him if they fuck one time, right? Completely, I know I already mentioned this earlier, but just completely switch sexual persuasions. He is such an arrogant, delusional clown. He said that he and Constand were, quote, playing sex. We're playing, petting, we're playing. Oh my God. He claimed that on the night of the alleged assault, he gave Constand 1.5 Benadryl tablets to, quote, relieve her stress. Yeah, totally. Because everybody knows that when you're stressed out, you take fucking Benadryl. And that they then kissed and had sexual contact after that, after she's drowsy as fuck. He later said he spoke to her mom about it, that he was worried that she would think of him as a dirty old man. Yeah, because you are. During that call, he said he wanted Constand to tell her mother, quote, about the orgasm. So she would realize it was consent. That's so absurd. Just tell your mom about how you came. Come on. He said he was worried that they would try to embarrass him. So he offered to help pay for Constand's education, but then she refused to take that money. July 26, 2015, New York Magazine's The Cut runs a story titled 35 Women Tell Their Stories About Being Assaulted by Bill Cosby and the Culture That Wouldn't Listen. By the time of publication, there were now 46 women who came forward, almost 50 women, accusing Cosby of rape, sexual assault, being drugged with the obvious intention of being assaulted. Most of the women who spoke to The Cut said they were drugged without their awareness or consent. According to the piece, quote, the group of women Cosby allegedly assaulted functions almost as a longitudinal study, both for how an individual woman on her own deals with such trauma over the decades and for how the culture at large has grappled with rape over the same time period. In the 60s, when the first alleged assault by Cosby occurred, rape was considered to be something violent committed by a stranger. Acquaintance rape didn't register as such, even for the women experiencing it. A few of Cosby's accusers claimed that he molested or raped them multiple times. One remained in his orbit, in and out of a drug state for years. In the 70s and 80s, campus movements like Take Back the Night and No Means No helped raise awareness of the reality that 80 to 90% of victims know their attacker. Still, the culture of silence and shame lingered, especially when the men accused had any kind of status. The first assumption was that women who accused famous men were after money or attention. As Cosby allegedly told some of his victims, no one would believe you, so why speak up? The group of accusers ranges in age from early 20s to 80 and includes supermodels Beverly Johnson and Janice Dickinson, along waitresses and Playboy bunnies and journalists and a host of women who formerly worked in show business. Many of the women say they know of others still out there who have chosen to remain silent. One of the women was 59-year-old Patricia Leary Stewart, who claimed she had been assaulted back in 1978 and 1980. According to the article, then 22-year-old Stewart worked at the University of Massachusetts and met Cosby there after he gave a lecture in 1978. He offered to mentor Stewart as she pursued a singing career. Cosby later invited her to a dinner party at his Massachusetts home. When Stewart got there, the table was set for just 2 people. Cosby handed Stewart a drink, insisted she perform an improv exercise, pretended she was a queen with oatmeal covering her face. She began to feel woozy. Her next memory is of Cosby standing above her, her clothes off, in a bathrobe. He handed her a toothbrush, telling her that she had gotten sick and passed out in his guest room. Stewart went home, still unsure of what actually happened to her. Cosby kept in touch, arranging for acting lessons at a gym membership for her. He invited Stewart to events, but nothing more occurred until he asked her to join him in Atlantic City. In the evening, she met him in his suite, where he handed her 2 large pills and a glass of champagne. The next morning, she woke up naked in one of the rooms in his suite. or of his suite. Stewart joined on as a Jane Doe in the 2005 Andrea Constand lawsuit. She had initially wanted a pseudonym in New York, but when the news broke that Cosby admitted in depositions that he had given women quaaludes, she sent an email saying the protection wasn't necessary. He can no longer claim that we are lying, she wrote. I want to spend time with him because this is the man who said he was going to help me with my career. So I thought, okay, I'll take the pills. I really had no idea what his modus operandi was. Not that I blame myself or that I feel responsible, but I allowed my ambition to overrule my judgment. I placed my trust in a flawed human being. I don't want to ever be seen as his victim. What happened, happened. I told the man that I was going to marry, whom I met shortly after that. I told some of my friends. I got a mixture of disbelief, but I didn't get a lot of encouragement to go to the authorities because in the late 70s, women didn't challenge powerful men. 67-year-old Joan Tarshis, assaulted in 1969, also detailed what she went through with Cosby. According to the article, 19-year-old Tarshis was starting a career as a comedy writer when she met Cosby in Los Angeles through mutual friends. The comedian asked Tarshis if she'd be interested in working on some material with him. She joined Cosby at his bungalow. Cosby served Tarshis a Bloody Mary topped with a beer. She drank some, and the next thing she remembered was Cosby undressing her on his couch. She told him she had a yeast infection, hoping to fend him off. Cosby grabbed her head, forced her to perform oral sex on him. Back in New York, Tarshis got a phone call from Cosby inviting her to his show on Long Island now. Her mother answered the phone, and Tarshis didn't want to explain to her mom why she was reluctant to attend. She had a drink or two at his New York City hotel. Before she left, she saw a vial of pills and a man's shaving kit. They went to the show. It hit me like a sledgehammer, she says. She felt like she was about to pass out, and she had the driver take her back to the limo. The next thing she remembers is waking up in bed the next morning with Cosby, naked and sore. She came forward in November of 2014. It was really painful. The way he was holding onto my hair, I couldn't get away. I never wrote comedy again, she said. I couldn't put a name to it. I didn't say accosted. I didn't know what to call it. The difference between this and somebody else's rape in the dark alley is that his face would be before me every week on TV. Every once in a while, my parents saying, oh, come here, look and see Bill Cosby. Look and see the Cosby Show. People would mention a joke and that he said, wasn't that funny? All the while, my stomach would just be churning saying, you don't know the man. 55-year-old Heidi Thomas, a music teacher, was 24, she said, when she was assaulted in 1984. She told The Cut, my agent said we've been contacted by a really, really big person in the entertainment industry who's interested in mentoring promising young talent. I find out it's Bill Cosby. I had the understanding I was going to be receiving private acting coaching from him. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. A driver would pick me up. My agent was paying for it. That made it all very, very professional. The door opens and there stands Cosby. He's in his sweats and very casual, very friendly. I had a monologue prepared. He seemed unimpressed. He said, let's try a cold read. So he pulls out a script. The scene was set in a bar. The character was someone who was inebriated. He poured a glass of white wine, and he said, use this as a prop. Now, that means you're going to have to sip on it, of course. I really don't remember much, except waking up in his bedroom. He was naked, and he was forced himself into my mouth. Fucking my God. He'd worked out a whole scenario he could just replay over and over and over. Famous, wealthy, trustworthy actor and comic offering to help young women break into showbiz. Right? Oh, yeah, send her over to my house. Let's do some improv. For this scene, drink this. Pretend like you're drunk. And then once the drugs hit and she's blacking out, he rapes her. Writer Jewel Allison said she was assaulted in 1990. Quote, I was introduced to Bill Cosby through my modeling agent. She said that Cosby wanted to see me, which I thought was obviously for the show. I was told there was going to be a dinner, and when I got there, no one ever arrived. He asked me if I wanted a glass of wine. I took a few sips. It had a horrible taste, and I started not feeling well. He helped me up on my underarms with both hands. He walked me into the next room where there was a mirror on the wall, and he told me to look at myself. Something was wrong with me. And then he took my right hand and he put it behind my back. I remember seeing semen on the floor, and I felt liquid on my hand. That was when I knew something sexual was going on. Man, what the fuck? 72-year-old Victoria Valentino, former Playboy bunny, recounted what happened to her in 1969, saying, he took my roommate and me out to dinner. It was this new hip steak restaurant on the Strip near the Whiskey A Go-Go called Sneaky Pete's. He was chatting her up, trying to charm her, and he reached across and put a pill next to my wine glass and said, here, this will make you feel better. And he gave her one. I wasn't really thinking. My son had recently died. I thought, great, me feel better? You bet. So I took the pill and washed it down with some red wine, and then he reached across and put another pill in my mouth, and he gave her one. Just after I took the second pill, my face was like face-in-plate syndrome, and I just said, I want to go home. He said he would drive us home. We went up this elevator. I sat down. I laid my head back, just fighting nausea. I looked around and he was sitting next to my roommate on the love seat with this very predatory look on his face. She was completely unconscious. I could hear the words in my head, but I couldn't form words with my mouth because I was so drugged out. He got up, came over, he sat down, unzipped his pants. He had me give him oral sex, and then he stood me up, turned me over, did me doggy style, and walked out. Just as he got to the door, I said, "How do we get out of here? How do we get home?" And he said, "Call a cab." Motherfucker. I bet he knew that her son had just died. 66-year-old Kathy McGee. Just a little bit more here. Former actress and Vegas showgirl said she was assaulted sometime between 1973 and 1974, and she told The Cut, Bill had been a friend. I'd had a dinner with his wife on one or two different occasions. I'd worked with him. I'd known him for many, many years, and he never made a pass at me. So when this happened to me, I was really, really shocked. I just couldn't understand what was wrong with him. Had he lost his mind? When I came out of the bathroom, he said to me, "Okay, come on, let's go. They're waiting for us." He was behaving like a person that I had never met before in my life. 70-year-old Joyce Emmons, a former comedy club manager, said she was assaulted between 1979 and 1980. She said, "I had a terrible headache." I said, "Bill, do you have some Tylenol? I have a mother of a headache." And he said to me, "I have something stronger." And I said, "You know I don't do drugs." He said, "You're one of my best friends. Would I hurt you?" And I believed him. All I remember is taking the pill. I don't remember going to bed, but I do remember waking up in a fog and opening my eyes, and I had no clothes on, and there was Bill's friend totally naked in bed with me. He started to laugh and smile, and he said, "Oh, did you have a good time?" I said, "What the fuck happened? Do you always fuck a dead person?" I got my clothes on, and I walked out, and Bill said, "Where are you going?" I said, "What the fuck did you give me?" He said, "Oh, you had a bad headache. You were in so much pain, I gave you a Quaalude." That's why I know the stories of what he did to other women are true, because if he didn't have the respect for me, who was a really close friend, then he could have done that to anybody he didn't know very well. Former Playboy bunny and hotel executive PJ Maston said, "I told my supervisor at the Playboy Club what he did to me. And you know what she said to me? She said, 'You do know that's Hugh Hefner's best friend, right?' I said, 'Yes.' She says to me, 'Nobody's going to believe you. I suggest you shut your mouth.'" Man, motherfucker. And it just keeps going. More and more revolting stories. The Cut also spoke to women who had already gone public, such as Tamara Green, who said, "People often these days say, well, why didn't you take it to the police?" Andrea Constand went to the police in 2005. How'd it work out for her? Not at all. In 2005, Bill Cosby still had control of the media. In 2015, we have social media. We can't be disappeared. It's online, and it can never go away. It's a fucking great point. Barbara Bowman said in her interview, "Listen, he was America's favorite dad. I went into this thinking he was going to be my dad. To wake up half-dressed and raped by the man that said he was going to love me like a father? That's pretty sick." It was hard for America to digest when this came out, and a lot of backlash, and a lot of denial, and a lot of anger happened. Damn, dude said he was going to love her like a father, then raped her. Bill Cosby sounds a lot like some of the serial killers we've covered. More like them than like the clean comic and lovable, wholesome dad he was on TV. The day of the article's publication, which again was July 26, 2015, Spelman College, the historically black women's college that him and his wife donated so much money to, $20 million, discontinued their endowed professorship named after Bill Cosby and returned the remaining funds to Cosby and his wife. Well, the school thankfully wouldn't need his money. Last year, they actually got a record $100 million donation from board member and billionaire Rhonda Stryker and her husband, William Johnson. September 24, 2015, Marquette, Fordham Universities revoke Cosby's honorary degrees. Bunch of other lesser-known institutions will follow. More accusers will come forward. October 9, 2015, Cosby undergoes deposition in Judy Huss lawsuit. October 15th, 2015, Tufts University and Goucher College revoke Cosby's honorary degrees. Days later, Amherst College rescinds Cosby's honorary doctorate. The first time they had done that in the school's history, which began back in 1821. It's almost 200 years earlier. October 21st, 2015, Cosby fires longtime lawyer Martin Singer. Things are spiraling for him. Cosby was supposed to undergo deposition in relation to Janice Dickinson's defamation suit, but in late November of 2015, his attorneys filed a request to put the deposition on hold. December 14th, 2015, Cosby filed a defamation countersuit against 7 of his accusers in Massachusetts, arguing the plaintiffs were making, quote, malicious, opportunistic, and false and defamatory charges. A week later, December 21st, Cosby files a defamation suit against accuser Beverly Johnson. His lawyer said he never drugged the defendant and her story is a lie. He sought compensatory and punitive damages, a retraction of her statements, and the removal from her memoir of the chapter where the allegations are mentioned. And he will get none of that shit. Beverly is stronger than he is. Hail Lucifina. By late 2015, some 50 women had now come forward with claims against Cosby. And for the first time, he's about to face criminal charges. December 30th, 2015, a warrant is issued for Cosby's arrest for the alleged drugging and sexual assault of Andrea Constand in January of 2004. The warrant was issued a month before the statute of limitations was set to expire. Cosby was charged with aggravated indecent assault without consent, aggravated indecent assault while the victim was unconscious or unaware that penetration occurred, and aggravated indecent assault in which a suspect impairs complainant. Montgomery County DA Kevin Steele said the case was reopened after new evidence emerged in July, referring to documents from Cosby's deposition. Unfortunately, that same deposition evidence will later free Cosby. But first, let's hear about how he does end up in prison. One of the most important factors was Cosby's conflicting identifications of the drug he gave Andrea Constand. Constand said he described it as an herbal drug. Cosby told the police the drug was Benadryl, but he told Constand's mother he couldn't recall what it was. His apologies to Constand's mother and offer of financial support were, quote, further indicative of Cosby's consciousness of guilt, said the court. The complaint stated, investigators recognize that individuals who are falsely accused of sexual assault generally do not unilaterally offer generous financial assistance and apologies to their accuser and their accuser's family. The complaint noted that Constand had no romantic interest in Cosby. Yeah, she's not even interested in any dudes, and never thought he would hit on her, and never thought he would hit on her, quote, especially since Cosby is much older than her father. On the night she was drugged, she told him she felt drained and emotionally occupied. He urged her to take the pills. She soon experienced blurred vision, difficulty speaking, nausea, and dizziness. Then she woke up at 4 a.m. with her sweater bunched up and her bra undone. February 2nd, 2016, former Montgomery County DA Bruce Castor testified that he did not file charges against Cosby in 2005 because he did not think Constand's allegations would stand up in court. Following day, February 3rd, a judge ruled Cosby's case could go forward, and declined to remove DA Steele from the case. February 22nd, 2016, Camille Cosby gives 2.5 hours of testimony in a deposition for a lawsuit filed by 7 different accusers in Massachusetts. February 25th, Cosby drops his lawsuit against accuser Beverly Johnson because he never had a fucking chance to win that. May 24th, a judge concludes that there was sufficient evidence for Cosby to stand trial on charges of sexual assault. Cosby defense tried to undermine Constand's credibility, pointing out that she accepted tickets to a Cosby performance after the assault, even though she initially told the police she didn't have contact with him afterwards. Constand would not testify at this hearing. The prosecution mostly relied on Cosby's statements in his 2005 deposition. The defense argued that Cosby's deposition should not be used against him and accused the prosecution of being politically motivated. During the election between DA Kevin Steele and former DA Bruce Castor, one key issue was Castor's decision not to prosecute Cosby in 2005. Portions of Constand and Cosby's statements were read in court. Constand stated that Cosby handed her 3 pills, told her to down them. He said, quote, these will make you feel good. The blue things will take the edge off. He offered her wine. Constand tried to refuse because she hadn't eaten all day, but Cosby insisted, quote, you can nurse it. Soon her vision became blurry, her legs wobbly. She was in and out of consciousness. Cosby told her to lie down and then began touching her. She said she was aware she was being fondled and digitally penetrated. So he's putting his fingers in her vagina. She couldn't speak and felt paralyzed. Cosby told Constand's mother there was, quote, no penile penetration. It's a fucking weird thing to say to her mom. He specifically said, I never intended to have sexual intercourse. He said they were kissing and petting while fully clothed, and he enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. July 18th, 2016, a source close to Cosby told the New York Post, page 6, that Cosby was legally blind due to a degenerative eye condition known as keratoconus, which causes the cornea to bulge. You gotta come up with fucking better names for some of these diseases. Why are we still using Latin? Called keratoconus. Okay? Or you just, I don't know what would be better. Maybe just come up with a funny name. I don't know. Degenerative eye condition called wonky eye. That's probably not good. Cosby's blindness will become a key issue during his pretrial arguments. Cosby had, by this point, severe glaucoma in both eyes, was almost totally blind in his right eye. Those who knew him said he had suffered from gradual decline in vision for years. His lawyers argued that his condition hampered his defense. In later court filings, they wrote that he suffers from a degenerative eye condition and cannot write, read, draw, or drive. Who gives a shit? Good. It'll make it harder for him to keep fucking raping. Hopefully he's impotent, too. In a motion for dismissal, his lawyers wrote, without his eyesight, Mr. Cosby cannot even determine whether he has even seen some of his accusers, let alone develop defenses and gather exculpatory evidence. Well, you know what? Just let him go then. Just let him be free. Once you're blind, you can't be charged with a crime. Everyone knows that. This September 9th, 2016, the Associated Press reports that Cosby's lawyers cited racism for the first time. Fuck out of here. Their statement said, quote, Mr. Cosby is no stranger to discrimination and racial hatred. When the media repeats her accusations with no evidence, no trial, and no jury, we are moved backwards as a country and away from America and away from the America that our civil rights leaders sacrificed so much to create. Jesus Christ, they're dramatic. Listen, if we fucking believe her, we might as well have slavery again, everybody, okay? That's what's fucking happening here. What are you talking about? April 26, 2017, Evan Cosby issued a statement defending her father, saying, I know that my father loves me, loves my sisters, and my mother. He loves and respects women. He's not abusive, violent, or a rapist. Well, you know what? Forget everything I've said. He's innocent. Thank you, Evan. If anyone knew what he was sexually up to for all those decades, it would be his daughter, of course. Since obviously, all of us dads disclose all of our sexual wheelings and dealings with our daughters. Standard fathering. If you ever need to know anything about my sexual past, right? Just contact my daughter Monroe. She's got charts, spreadsheets, testimonials, diagrams, sculptures for some reason, rows of file cabinets. No, don't do that. It's disgusting. May 16, 2017, Cosby did his first interview in 2 years with SiriusXM Radio, where he said he would not testify and suggested racism was partially responsible for the allegations against him. Host Michael, oh my gosh, this guy's name is fun. Michael Smerconish. Mr. Smerconish. Host Michael Smerconish read a statement from his daughter, Bill's daughter, Enza, which said racism has played a big role in all aspects of this scandal. Totally. Yeah, bringing Cosby down in 2017 makes so much sense, right? I mean, why bring him down to the 70s or 80s when society was so much more racist and he was so much more wealthy and popular, right? That would be too obvious. No. It's better to wait. Wait until his career is washed up and he's fucking old and almost blind. That's when you strike. When asked if he agreed, Cosby said, could be. I can't say anything, but there are certain things I look at and I apply that to the situation. And there are so many tentacles, so many different, nefarious is a great word. I just truly believe that some of it may very well be that. Did he just say tentacles? Oh my God. Is this part of last week's octopus / October conspiracy? Maybe. May 16th, 2017. Manhattan, New York City. Bill Cosby, America's dad, references Danny Casalero's octopus conspiracy. And who happens to be listening? None other than former Santa Fe, New Mexico Lucky Pantry manager Todd Weaver, a man declared dead back in the summer of 1993. Who told law enforcement to announce that he had been murdered? Why were they searching for Roger Gonzalez if he didn't in fact kill anyone for incorrectly pricing some hand soap? And where was Daniel Neal Cummins in 1993, father of podcaster Daniel Brent Cummins? How does he tie into all of this? How are the tentacles all connected to the voice of Fat Albert? Bill, never drink what he hands you, Cosby. Join me. Perhaps you hold the crucial clue that will solve tonight's unsolved mystery. God, I love Robert Stack so much. Oh, so good. So good. Sorry if that was confusing for those of you who skipped last week. Anyway, the satellite radio show host pointed out that some of Cosby's accusers were black women and wondered how that would play into a racist takedown. Cosby responded, quote, let me put it to you this way. When you look at the power structure, when you look at individuals, There are some people who can very well be motivated by whether or not they're going to work or whether or not they might be able to get back at someone. So if it's in terms of whatever the choice is, I think that you can also examine individuals and situations and they will come out differently. So it's not every, but I do think that there's some. Okay. Yeah. No, that really explained, concisely why those women would help take Cosby down. Thanks for clearing all that up, Junior. May 25th, 2017, jury selection comes to a close in Cosby's sexual assault trial. The proceedings had officially started back on June 5th. 44-year-old Andrea Constant gave her testimony on June 6th. At the time, Constant was working as a massage therapist back in Toronto, where she's from. She described how she met Cosby through a mutual friend while running operations for Temple women's basketball back in 2002. She said he was a Temple friend, somebody I trusted, a mentor, somewhat of an older figure to me. Cosby started off calling her on her university-issued cell. They discussed some possible renovations to the team's facilities. Cosby then asked her about her personal life, began mentoring her for a sports broadcasting career. He introduced her to influential people in the restaurant industry, the university community, even a TV writer, an agent in New York, and he partially paid for those trips. She showed her thankfulness, her appreciation by calling Cosby to thank him, talking to him, giving him small gifts such as bath salts, Temple University apparel, she said. Also said that some things did stand out to her as red flags, like how Cosby once invited her to a show in Connecticut, asked her to go to his room to share, quote, baked goods together. He laid on the bed, brushed his knee against her leg. He invited her to his mansion for dinners where she would eat alone, with Cosby occasionally popping in to check on her. That's fucking weird. Come over to my house for dinner. And then just have like your butler give the person dinner and then just kind of wander around the house. Constance's testimony then shifted to the night she was assaulted in January 2004, when she said Cosby gave her 3 blue pills after another dinner. She asked if they were natural/herbal. They'd previously discussed herbal supplements when talking about basketball. Cosby said, quote, put them down your throat. They're your friends. They'll take the edge off. She asked if she needed to take all 3. He nodded, and she took them because she trusted him. Constant testified that soon after swallowing the pills, quote, I began slurring my words. I told Mr. Cosby I had trouble seeing him, that I could see 2 of him. My mouth was very cottony. He led her to the couch, helped her lie down. He gave her a pillow to support her head, and she lost consciousness. She wasn't sure how long she was out, but she woke up when, quote, I felt Mr. Cosby's hands groping my breasts under my shirt. I also felt his hand inside my vagina, moving in and out. I felt him take my hand and place it on his penis and move it back and forth. When the prosecutor asked why she didn't stop him, she testified, I wasn't able to. Constant was asked why she didn't push him away and said, in my head, I was trying to get my hands to move or my legs to move, but I was frozen and those messages didn't get there. She said she retreated into her own mind and wanted to go home. Finally, around 5 a.m., she felt strong enough to move. Cosby was waiting for her in the kitchen, offered her a muffin and tea. What a fucking gentleman. She took a few bites, a few sips of tea, and then she left. Prosecution asked Constant why she maintained contact with Cosby after the assault, and she testified she was worried about losing her job and only did so because he called about Temple business. When asked why she waited a full year to come forward, Constant testified, if I went to the police, I thought Mr. Cosby would retaliate and try to hurt me. What had happened to me, it was overwhelming. The defense brought up the fact that she was alone in a room with a married man, referring to the trip to Connecticut. They also pointed out inconsistencies between her testimony and the police report. Earlier, during direct examination, Constant said her accounts didn't always line up because I was just really confused. I had a lot going through my mind. One of several prosecution witnesses was Kelly Johnson, who claimed Cosby drugged and sexually assaulted her at an LA hotel in 1996. She said she first met Cosby in 1990 while working as an assistant to his agent. They were friends. He occasionally would call her. In late 1995 or early 1996, he invited her to go have a meal at the Bel Air Hotel to discuss her career. But then at the last minute, he changed the location of the meeting to a private bungalow. It was clear that the prosecution is now using her testimony to show this pattern of behavior. She said Cosby, quote, intimidated her into taking a pill to help her relax, and that she then woke up on the bed with her breasts exposed. Cosby was standing by the side of the bed, and she said, quote, I could see a bottle of lotion on the corner of the nightstand. He put lotion in my hand, and he made me touch his penis. Constant, her mother, accuser Kelly Johnson, and others also testified for the prosecution. The defense only called one witness, a detective who testified for only 6 minutes. In closing, DA Kevin Steele described Cosby as a sexual predator who tried to recast the sexual assault as being consensual and romantic. The defense used their closing argument to highlight Andrea Constand's inconsistencies. And then on June 13th, 2017, As Bill departed court following the second day of jury deliberations in his sexual assault trial, he randomly decided to let loose a hey, hey, hey. It's very fucking weird.
Mr. Cosby, 16 hours. How are you feeling? Mr. Cosby, any thoughts about the jury deliberations?
Oh, so funny. Oh, so good. Oh, it really holds up. That's so weird. June 17th, 2017. The case ended in a mistrial after 6 days of deliberation. But then DA Kevin Steele announced the state intended to retry Cosby. Cosby spokesperson Andrew Wyatt told the press, Mr. Cosby's power is back. It's back. It has been restored. But then 2 of Cosby's defense attorneys withdrew from the case in August of 2017. Later that month, he introduced his new legal team via Twitter. One of the attorneys was Thomas Mesereau, who in 2005 defended another very innocent man who had wild and unfounded racially motivated accusations thrown against him, Saint Michael Jackson. He's a saint now, right? Isn't he? I feel like I heard that. Wasn't he made a saint recently? Saint Michael Jackson. Patron saint of child actors. A patron saint of white children with black but also kind of bleached fathers. I can't remember exactly what Saint Michael Jackson is a patron of. Pedophiles, maybe? The patron saint of pedophiles? I can't remember. Cosby's team also included Kathleen Bliss, who spent 22 years as a federal prosecutor in Oklahoma, D.C., New Mexico, Nevada, and Philly attorney Samuel Silver. In January of 2018, while awaiting his retrial, Cosby got on stage at the La Rose Jazz Club in Philly for his first public performance since May of 2015, part of a program honoring jazz musician Tony Williams. I believe it was his last stand-up performance as I record this. He declined to talk about the sexual assault case afterwards. I've seen clips. Doesn't seem like he's blind. Maybe legally blind, but not blind. I wish I knew exactly what jokes he told, but the clips I found just have like interviews and like little like a montage, but you can't actually hear a bit. That'd be great if he's still doing Fat Albert all these years later. Hey. January 26th, Cosby defense filed a motion to dismiss, accusing prosecutors of withholding, destroying evidence that could have helped their case. They claimed prosecutors had only recently made them aware of an interview with Marguerite Jackson, an alleged witness who would say that Andrea Constand told her she was not sexually assaulted, but could claim she was to get money. And that, if true, is obviously troubling. Defense alleged that the prosecution destroyed notes from this interview. February 1st, 2018, the University of Pennsylvania revokes honorary degrees bestowed upon Bill Cosby and also upon Las Vegas casino mogul Steve Wynn, who was accused of sexual misconduct. Cosby's retrial started April 2nd, 2018, April 9th. The day testimony began, a topless protester charged at Cosby as he arrived at court. She was later identified as 39-year-old Nicole Rochelle, often credited as Nicole Leach, and she had appeared in 4 episodes of The Cosby Show between 1990 and 1992. She would go on to become an Ivy League graduate of Brown University with a degree in linguistic anthropology. So she's fucking smart. Cosby spokesperson Andrew Wyatt told ABC he was guiding Cosby along their regular path at the courthouse when she stood up on the railing, ripped off a black leather jacket, jumped in front of Cosby and yelled, "Look at me, he raped me." She also screamed the comedian's famed Fat Albert catchphrase of "Hey, hey, hey," and then added, "Women's lives matter." It's pretty good. She later said that Cosby did not rape her, that she was just so fucking angry at him. She felt so betrayed by him and was so sad for his victims, she wanted to raise more awareness for them. She added regarding why she believes his accusers, quote, "For me, it was a matter of a numbers game. For me, it was very logical to believe the victims. Doing the research, it's only 5 to 10% of rape victims that ever lie. How is that possible that all the women are lying? It actually isn't possible." When I looked into her protest, an article about her on ABC added more stats about accusers that I thought I should share here. The Making a Difference Project, a study undertaken by the organization End Violence Against Women International, looked at 2,059 cases in the U.S. and Canada back in 2009 and found only 7% could be classified as false, right? And these are cases of rape accusations. So that's a good reason to take accusations seriously. Like, yeah, some are bullshit. And the people who falsely accuse others, man, they're a special kind of scumbag whose actions sadly cast doubt on the accusations of many real victims. The overwhelming majority of accusations are, in fact, credible, statistically. In court, the prosecution revealed for the first time that Cosby paid Andrea Constand just under $3.4 million as part of her 2006 settlement. So you know what? Fucking good for her. Cosby agreed to disclose the settlement amount during pretrial discussions. The defense was expected to argue that the payment was not an admission of wrongdoing on Cosby's part, but evidence of Constan's financial incentive in pursuing charges. District Attorney Kevin Steele spent most of his opening statement addressing anticipated defense attacks on Constan. He emphasized she did not come to his office to report the allegations. He said investigators went to her after the deposition was unsealed in 2015, and they asked if she was willing to help them. He also brought up Constan's inconsistencies, saying, "You're going to hear her describe to the best of her ability what happened. When I say to the best of her ability, make sure you consider those pills and the glass of wine, because then he helped her to a sofa. She's unconscious, she's jolted, and she's being violated." He also reminded the jury that the case was the state versus Cosby, not the case of Constan versus Cosby. The defense told the jury they would hear testimony from Temple University academic advisor Marguerite Jackson, who said Constan once told her she could make money by falsely accusing she was assaulted by a prominent person. Right? That troubling testimony. But Jackson was not allowed to testify at the first trial after Constan testified. She did not know her. However, the defense presented two former Temple colleagues now who said the women did know of each other. Right? And that is weird. But again, this isn't just her versus Cosby. No, this is a lot of women versus Cosby. The judge allowed the prosecutors to present accounts from 5 women who claimed Cosby tried to intoxicate them as part of a plan to sexually abuse them. The prosecution argued that similar accusations demonstrated a pattern of assault. On April 12, 2018, Cosby accuser Janice Dickinson testified he assaulted her, right, in that Lake Tahoe hotel room in 1992 we heard about. She told the jury the same story that was detailed earlier in our timeline, adding, "Here was America's dad on top of me, a happily married man with 5 children on top of me." The defense read a passage from Dickinson's 2002 memoir where she wrote that she never entered Cosby's room that night and took 2 Quaaludes alone in her room. She testified she was advised by her publishers to leave out the assault for legal reasons. Dickinson publisher Judith Reagan would confirm that there were discussions about putting the rape accusation in the book. Another accuser who testified at trial, was Janice Baker Kinney, who said Cosby drugged and sexually assaulted her in Reno in 1982 when she was a 24-year-old bartender. Lisa Latte Lublin, whom we met earlier in the timeline, testified Cosby drugged her in a Las Vegas hotel room in 1989 during a supposed acting lesson. Right? That's his fucking gig there. Accuser Chalin Lasha testified that Cosby invited her to his Las Vegas suite in 1986 when she was only 17 to help with her modeling career. Such a mentor. And then he gave her a pill and alcohol, and that he then Cosby'd her. And that should be a synonym for roofied and sexually assaulted now, right? Cosby'd.
Hey, hey, hey!
The jury then heard Marguerite Jackson's testimony April 18th, 2018. Jackson testified that Andrea Constan made a comment about how easy it would be to frame a celebrity for sexual assault and get money. She said that occurred in February of 2004 when they were watching TV in a shared hotel room on a Temple women's basketball team trip to Rhode Island. They saw a clip on TV about a different celebrity accused of sexual assault, and Constan allegedly told Jackson that she had been sexually assaulted by a celebrity, but then changed her story and said, no, it didn't happen. According to Jackson, she said, no, it didn't. I could say it did. I could quit my job. I could get that money. Constan would testify at the retrial that Jackson's name sounded familiar, but she always roomed alone on trips. She didn't share her hotel room, and that would be fucking weird. Jackson testified that she shared a room with Constan for away games 2 or 3 times. So who's telling the truth here? Jackson said she remembered her conversation with Constan in 2005 after allegations against Cosby surfaced. Said she came forward in 2016 after Cosby was charged. Said she had met a comedian on a cruise ship who put her in touch with Cosby's reps. And that is a little weird to me, just knowing how the comedy business works. Not to disparage cruise ship comics, but amongst comics, it is considered the lowest form of stand-up. Like if you're doing a cruise ship, it's not because your career is on fire. If you're doing like a special event on a cruise ship, like if it's your cruise or some special like themed thing for, some bunch of metal bands and you get to be the comic with the metal bands, or if it's like, huge podcast that's having a big, cruise ship and you're a special performer, that is different. But if you're just like randomly on the Royal Caribbean doing their comedy, it's generally because you're not able to get booked in clubs because you're not selling tickets, et cetera. So the fact that somebody working in that space would know Cosby's reps is, I think, highly unlikely. But that's just my 2 cents. The prosecution asked her why she took so long to come forward, produced university expense records showing that Jackson did not submit claims for reimbursement associated with the travel with the team in 2004, but did in 2003. She said she didn't remember filing any expenses. Closing arguments are made April 24th, 2018. Cosby defense describes the Me Too movement as a mob mentality. Yikes. Primarily based on emotion and anger. Jumped the shark there in a couple cases, but overall, a lot of the right fucking people got taken down. Defense attorney Kathleen Bliss said, yes, we do have to deal with sexual assault. We do. It's a worldwide problem. But questioning an accuser is not shaming a victim. Okay, yeah, fair. Gut feelings are not rational decisions. Mob rule is not due process. And just as we have had horrible, horrible crimes in our history, we've also had horrible, horrible periods of time where emotion and hatred and fear overwhelmed us. Witch hunts, lynchings, McCarthyism. Okay, all right, I mean, fair points. Bliss also said the additional accusers were fabricating stories for attention, money, or fame. She said accuser Janice Dickinson sounded as though she slept with every man on the planet. That's a fucking weird and unnecessary bit of slut shaming. Do accusers sometimes lie? They do. Do over 50 accusers lie about the same man? Highly unlikely. And again, just think of the stats I mentioned earlier. Highly fucking unlikely. The defense portrayed Andrea Constant as a con artist with financial problems who was seeking a payout. They pointed out inconsistencies in her statements. At one point, Constant said the assault took place in March of 2004. Then she changed it to January 2004. Phone records showed she stayed in touch with Cosby after the assault. Travel itineraries, flight schedules showed Cosby did not stay in his Philadelphia home during the period in which Constant said the assault occurred on one occasion. Was she lying? Well, the jury wouldn't think so. April 26, 2018, Bill Cosby is found guilty. 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault on the second day of deliberations. After the verdict, the DA asked that Cosby's $1 million bail be revoked because he's convicted of a serious crime and owned a plane, meaning he could flee. And then Cosby shouted at this point, "He doesn't have a plane, you asshole." What? Cosby is swearing? Who is he? After the verdict, Cosby's name and statue were removed from the Television Academy's Hall of Fame, and he was expelled from the Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts and Sciences. May 3rd, his wife, Camille Cosby, issued a statement. She believed, quote, "An innocent person has been found guilty based on an unthinking, unquestioning, unconstitutional frenzy propagated by the media and allowed to play out in a supposed court of law. This is mob justice, not real justice." She said that unproven accusations evolved into lynch mobs. And then she compared, and this is why I really don't like her, she compared her husband's case to the murder of Emmett Till. That's so fucked up. We covered the lynching of Emmett Till here on Timesuck. Such a deeply tragic story. A young boy, just 14 years old, so young, brutally is kidnapped from his mother's uncle's home, tortured and savagely mutilated, and finally murdered by a group of racist, grown-ass men. He died in pain and terror, all because those men thought he maybe had essentially sassed or back-talked a white woman, which he didn't. She would later admit to lying about her interaction with him. Evoking his name with Cosby's rape conviction, fucking outrageous. She should be ashamed of herself for trying to diminish the pain so many African Americans actually went through, died from for decades and decades, centuries of American history. That quote is what made me despise her. Well, I mean, that and her refusing to believe just any of the, accusers, to even entertain that there might be something there, about her accusations about her husband that she knew was perpetually unfaithful. I just find her to be a very pathetic figure. She also called for an investigation into the DA's office, saying, quote, "This is a homogenous group of exploitive and corrupt people whose primary purpose is to advance themselves professionally and economically at the expense of Mr. Cosby's life. If they can do this to Mr. Cosby, they can do it to anyone." Technically true, but they weren't doing it to anyone. There's plenty of wealthy, successful, famous black men in America who've never been accused of any of this shit. Not ever. June 15, 2018, Cosby fired all 7 of the attorneys on his legal team, months ahead of his sentencing, replaced them with Pennsylvania attorney Joseph P. Green Jr. September 17, 2018, Camille goes to the goes to the Pennsylvania state capitol to file a complaint against a judge in her husband's case, calling him arrogant, corrupt, and unethical. They don't care. September 25th, 2018, Bill Cosby is sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison and is designated a sexually violent predator. Hail Nimrod. Pennsylvania defines a sexually violent predator as someone with, quote, a mental abnormality or personality disorder that makes the person likely to engage in predatory sexually violent offenses. Cosby was required to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life and subject to the most stringent requirements a sex offender can incur. The judge told him, quote, "It is time for justice, Mr. Cosby. This is all circled back to you. The time has come." The hearing started off with testimony from Dr. Kirsten Dudley, a psychiatrist, author of a report issued in August 2018 by the Pennsylvania Sexual Offenders Assessment Board, recommending that Cosby be designated a sexually violent predator. The defense argued the state's designation process was unconstitutional because it's too punitive, which was an issue pending before the state Supreme Court. The judge ruled that until the issue was resolved, the action was constitutional. Dudley testified that one of the factors the board considered in reaching its conclusion was fear that Cosby would offend again. Andrea Constant gave a 2-minute statement asking for justice as the court sees fit. Constant also sent a written statement to the judge, which was released after sentencing. She wrote, "Bill Cosby took my beautiful, healthy young spirit and crushed it. He robbed me of my health and vitality, my open nature, and my trust in myself and others." Cosby declined to make a statement at his sentencing. 9 months later, Cosby filed an appeal on June 15, 2019, arguing it was improper for the judge to permit the testimony from the 5 additional accusers. Later that year, Cosby made headlines for agreeing to his first interview from prison, where he said he would rather serve the full 10 years than show remorse for crimes he didn't commit. July 25, 2019, Janice Dickinson announces at a press conference that she had settled with Bill Cosby's insurance company for, quote, an epic figure. You know what? Fucking good for her. Oral arguments for Cosby's appeal were made before the Pennsylvania Superior Court, August 12, 2019. December 10th, a 3-panel judge unanimously rejected Cosby's appeal. I guess it'd be a 3-judge panel. But then on June 23rd, 2020, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania agreed to hear 2 points of Cosby's appeal. The state Supreme Court heard the case December 1st, 2020. 6 months later, June 30th, 2021, Bill Cosby released from prison after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his conviction. Cosby was photographed walking out of the State Correctional Institution, Phoenix. State Correctional Institution, Phoenix is called, in Montgomery County. Cosby flashed a peace sign as he walked into his home. Cosby's spokesman, Andrew Wyatt, said, "What we saw today was justice for all Americans." Was it? Cosby didn't speak to reporters, but released a statement via Twitter, saying, "I have never changed my stance nor my story. I've always maintained my innocence. Thank you to all my fans, supporters, and friends who stood by me through this ordeal. Special thanks to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court for upholding the rule of law." Andrea Constant and her lawyers issued a statement saying today's majority decision regarding Bill Cosby is not only disappointing, but of concern, and that it may discourage those who seek justice for sexual assault in the criminal justice system from reporting or participating in the prosecution of the assailant, or may force a victim to choose between filing either a criminal or civil action. So, does this case being overturned mean he might be innocent? I don't think so, because he got off on a technicality. In the ruling, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court concluded that Cosby should have never been prosecuted because of a deal with former prosecutor Bruce Castor, who agreed not to criminally prosecute Cosby if he gave a deposition in a civil case brought against him by Constant. During that deposition, Cosby made incriminating statements we've already heard, admitting he drugged women he slept with, that Kevin R. Steele used to charge him. According to the decision, quote, "The discretion vested in our Commonwealth's prosecutors, however vast, does not mean that its exercise is free of the constraints of due process." DA Kevin Steele argued that he was not bound by that agreement with his predecessor, but the court concluded, quote, "When an unconditional charging decision is made publicly and with the intent to induce action and reliance by the defendant, and when the defendant does so to his detriment, and in some instances upon the advice of counsel, denying the defendant the benefit of that decision is an affront to fundamental fairness, particularly when it results in a criminal prosecution that was foregone for more than a decade." And I do agree with that, right? If you make a deal, they shouldn't be able to backtrack on the deal. But also, to me, this just shows, he's not freed because he didn't do it. He's freed because he was already, in a sense, punished for admitting that he did do fucking shady shit. During a hearing after Cosby's 2015 arrest, former DA Bruce Castor testified he promised Cosby he wouldn't be prosecuted in hopes he would testify in a civil case, which allowed Constant to win damages. That was only put in writing in his 2005 statement announcing his decision not to prosecute. His decision was meant to shield Cosby from prosecution, quote, "for all time," but during appeal arguments, DA Kevin Steele noted that Castor went on to say in that statement that he could revisit the decision in the future if he wanted to. In the end, the court called Cosby the victim of an unconstitutional, coercive bait and switch. And as much as I hate to say it, that's the right decision. Cosby believed he had immunity when he testified during 4 days of depositions. As a practical matter, the moment that Cosby was charged criminally, he was harmed. All that he had forfeited earlier and the consequences of that forfeiture in the civil case were for naught. Cosby now cannot be retried on criminal charges for this one victim's assault. September 7th, 2021 now. Time magazine publishes an essay by Andrea Constant about her reaction to the appeal. And in it, she wrote, "In deciding their verdict, the jurors have given me the gift of seeing justice delivered. In sharing their feelings with me in person, they were giving me an even greater gift. Once the sentencing was behind me, I knew that I had to turn my focus inward. For years, I'd worked hard to keep myself emotionally and spiritually afloat, but I was treading water all the time. Even my most strenuous efforts simply prevented me from sinking. When my civil suit concluded, I had tried to put Cosby in the past behind me. I had tried to forget all about it. Now I know that wasn't the way to become the person I was meant to be. Moving forward meant putting the pain behind me, but embracing and building on all the good that had come out of my experience. Yet I've certainly learned about my strengths and my own character. I've developed a greater capacity for compassion and forgiveness. I've learned that when faced with difficult decisions in life, it's important to do the right thing, no matter how frightening. It's in uncomfortable moments that true growth happens. If we don't walk through storms, we will never escape them. We will never heal. Perhaps most importantly, I now know that peace and comfort never come from an external event like a trial or a verdict. If we want to heal ourselves, we must look inside." On June 30th, 2021, she received a call from a representative of the Montgomery County DA's office who informed her the Supreme Court was about to announce its decision regarding Cosby's appeal. She received another call from the DA's office informing her the Supreme Court vacated the conviction. Before she had time to process what had just happened, the phone calls came flooding in. Although she was sad, disappointed by the decision, she said she's still determined to have a happy and successful life and encourages survivors to come forward and share their stories and seek justice. So did Cosby's overturned conviction now put his alleged past sins behind him? No, fuck no. Almost a year later, June 21st, 2022, a California jury decides Bill Cosby did sexually assault Judy Huth in 1975 when she was 16. Sorry, her testimony changed a little bit. I said earlier 1974, 15, 1975, 16. It was a long time ago. She's trying to remember exactly when it happened. There are pictures of her with him at the Playboy Mansion when she's a teen. And anyway, she was awarded $500,000 in damages. Judy Huth and her friend Donna Samuelson testified that in 1975, they met Cosby on a film set in a park near their homes. It was during the filming of Let's Do It Again. On the day in question, Cosby first invited them to his tennis club, then the house where he was staying, where they played a drinking game, fucking creepy. Then asked to follow him in their car. He asked them to follow him in their car to the Playboy Mansion, indicating there was a surprise there for them. And there was a surprise. Evil little Bill. Lawyers showed the jury a photo of Huth and Cosby in the game room at the mansion when she's a teenager and he's so much older. This photo was taken by Donna Samuelson. Huth claimed, I can't speak all of a sudden, that just 15 minutes before she was photographed, Cosby had molested her. She said Cosby first put his hands on Samuelson's shoulders, but she squirmed away. Huth asked to use the bathroom. When she came out, Cosby was sitting on a bed in an adjoining bedroom. He patted the seat next to him. After she sat down, he tried to lean her back and kiss her, put his hands under her belly button, which I mentioned earlier. She told him she was on her period, and then, quote, he pulled his sweats down, grabbed my hand, put it over his hand, closed it, forced her to perform a sexual act. In a video deposition from 2015, Cosby denied having any sexual contact with Huth, claimed he didn't know her, and could not recall ever talking or taking her to the Playboy Mansion. His defense pointed out that Huth's recollection changed. She initially said it happened in 1974, which I mentioned. More recently concluded it happened in 1975, but who fucking cares because she had photos, or at least a photo. Late December 2022, it is revealed that Cosby was planning to tour, do some stand-up dates in 2023, spoke to a DJ on Ohio's WGH Talk Radio, and answered yes when asked if he planned to tour, adding, "Because there's so much fun to be had in this storytelling that I do." Tour never happened, though. I cannot find information about shows in 2023 or 2024. And his website doesn't appear to have been updated since 2017. Also, in December of 2022, 5 more women file a civil suit in New York City, or New York, claiming Cosby sexually abused or assaulted them. A little over a year later, in January of 2024, Los Angeles-based woman, 52-year-old Chelan, I'm not sure, Chelan. We met her a few years back in the timeline. She filed a lawsuit against Cosby, claiming he sexually assaulted her in the Las Vegas Hilton's Elvis Presley suite when she was a teenager, 17, in 1986. Lasha's lawsuit states that she first met Cosby when she was just 15, when Cosby worked for a company where her stepmom worked. He saw a photo of Lasha on her stepmom's desk and thought, "Oh, she looks fucking hot," essentially. She said she took a blue capsule that Cosby gave her because she trusted Cosby and thought he was a good man. And she never imagined he was going to drug her and sexually assault her. September of 2024, A Nevada court denies Cosby's request to have the cases of 10 different alleged sexual assault victims be thrown out. In 2023, Nevada adopted State Bill 129, the Justice for Victims of Crime Bill, which lifted the civil statute of limitations for adult sexual assault survivors. And immediately following this law being passed, the group of 10 women sued Cosby for sexual assault, battery, assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent infliction of emotional distress, and false imprisonment. Cosby argued that one woman's allegation against him did not meet the legal definition of sexual assault and was therefore not within the scope of SB 129. Specifically, Cosby said that forced masturbation, as alleged by some of the plaintiffs, was not sexual assault. What? Because it did not include penetration of victim genitals. I love his fucking mentality. Come on. What, are you telling me it's illegal to force someone to jerk you off? Fucking seriously? Well, how am I supposed to know that? If I would have known that was illegal, I wouldn't have done it so much. The judge, U.S. District Court Gloria Navarro, disagreed. It's like, no, that's assault, buddy. Cosby also argued that SB 129 is itself illegal because it punishes those who committed sexual assault differently from others who committed other heinous crimes. Oh, but what the fuck, Your Honor? I barely forced myself on some of these women. I just had them jerk me off. I didn't fuck them after I drug them. What? This is unfair. Hey. Judge Navarro, my God, disagreed again. Following month, 29 women accusing Cosby of sexual assault tell their stories on an episode of NBC's Dateline. In December of 2024, so recently, just a few weeks ago, comedian Bill Maher said on his podcast that he never liked Bill Cosby. He was talking to fellow comic and actor, a guest on his show, Paul Reiser, from Mad About You. He said he never thought he was funny and that he had known the man was a sexual predator for 4 decades. When Reiser defended still being able to appreciate Bill's comedy, though, and complained that people might try to, cancel Mozart someday because he was a prick, Maher stopped him and said, there's pricks and then there's monsters. Cosby's a monster. Maher then told a story about when he was filming one of his first movie roles in the film DC Cab back in 1983, 1 year before The Cosby Show premiered. And he spoke to a woman who had worked with Cosby on a previous project. This person allegedly told Maher, for the first 3 weeks he tried to fuck me. And when that wasn't going to happen, he made the rest of my life on that movie a living hell. Maher then said, I always fucking hated him since. And the bad news that came out later maybe wasn't so shocking to me. And then finally, earlier this month, it was announced that Cosby was being sued for defaulting on a $17.5 million mortgage for his New York City townhouse. Beautiful 6-story, over 12,000 square feet home, built in 1899, located at 8 East 71st Street. According to Yahoo, the Cosbys have not made a mortgage payment since June of 2024. They owe over $300,000 in taxes on the house. This latest default follows another, allegedly on a $4.2 million loan, on a 4-story Lenox Hill home in Manhattan they've owned since 1980. And they've been selling off other properties and assets. It's estimated that since woman after woman began waging lawsuits against Cosby in late 2014, he has spent about $1 million a month on legal fees. And upwards of, I would guess $10 or $20 million to victims losing numerous civil cases. And these expenses have coincided with him losing nearly all of his income when all of his TV projects were canceled, his touring dried up, networks began to pull his past shows from syndication, publishers pulled many of his books from being in print, TV Land pulled the Cosby Show reruns from their lineup in November of 2014. Following month, the Aspire Network, owned by Magic Johnson, pulled the show. BET, Bounce TV, both pulled the show in December of 2014. It seems like the 87-year-old will spend the rest of his life in a legal hell of his own making.
Hey.
And let's get out of here with that.
Good job, soldier. You made it back. Barely.
Before I share some final thoughts, I apologize. I have an ad from a sponsor that I feel like they've truly lost their way. This is extremely tasteless. But here it goes. Today's Timesuck is brought to you by Whipple Chill Bill Cosby edition. Hey man, life can be so exhausting. Sometimes you just need to go to sleep, And nothing knocks you out faster than Whipple, a chill Bill Cosby edition. Made with a patent pending FDA-approved-ish formula of 40% Benadryl, 41% Rohypnol, 42% GHB, 43% Quaaludes, 44% chloroform, 45,000% melatonin, and 2,500 milligrams of indica mango-flavored edible gummies, and 25 teaspoons of raspberry cough syrup for flavor and more sleepiness. A Whipple, a chill. Bill Cosby edition will really put you down. Warning. Do not operate heavy machinery while drinking Whipple, a chill Bill Cosby edition. Or drive a vehicle, fly a plane, captain a boat, ride on a sitcom, walk on a treadmill, learn how to ride a unicycle, try stand-up comedy, make financial decisions, talk to loved ones, talk to anyone, try and use the bathroom, eat something you can choke on, eat anything, make eye contact with anyone, use your phone, wear underwear you care about. Most importantly, do not ever drink Whipple, a chill Bill Cosby edition in the vicinity of Bill Cosby. Whipple, a chill is a proud subsidiary of Bear Evil Incorporated. God, fuck, I told you that was terrible. No, I'm sorry you had to hear that sponsor. Initially, I did tell them. I told them to fuck off when they wanted to buy an ad. But then they offered me $1 billion. And I said, just tell me what you want me to say. So anyway, Bill Cosby. God, what a way to destroy what should have been such an incredible legacy. And you could argue, his only criminal conviction, was overturned, was vacated. Is he really guilty of anything? I mean, there was that one woman, Marguerite Jackson, who did say that Andrea Constand was looking to go out after some celebrity in order to get a big payout. I still think he did it. During the trial, I think I forgot to mention that Marguerite was undermined during cross-examination, and she conceded her testimony did differ from previous statements she gave defense attorneys, and she actually said that regarding her story and timeline, she and one of the comedian's lawyers, quote, kind of created it together. So that doesn't look great. Right? If Bill is as shady and manipulative as he seems, would he be above bribing somebody to lie for him? No, he would not. And also, that whole story about them sharing a hotel room, that doesn't make sense to me. I fucking highly doubt that Temple University would tell these two grown women, you have to share a hotel room on this travel for the team. What? Also, Bill has now lost numerous civil cases from women who keep telling different versions of the same fucking story, cases that involve others corroborating important details, and he was only freed from prison because evidence of him admitting to giving women drugs that made them fucking sleepy and then sleeping with them was deemed inadmissible. Right? He should be revered for being a comedy legend. Instead, he's going to be reviled for being a rapist, or he, has been. Mr. Spanish Fly, America's dad. Man, people are so complicated. Bill Cosby fought so hard, it seems, for black men to be treated equally as white men. But it seems he's never had much respect for women, not even black women. He didn't really do shit when his own daughter, right, came to him alleging that Mike Tyson tried to rape her. He cheated on his wife, it seems, just perpetually for the entirety of the first 50 or so years of their marriage. Threw his own fucking daughter under the bus in at least one interview. The man who claimed he wanted to stand up for his mom as a boy, but was too small to stand up to his dad when he did grow up, never really ended up defending black women, did he? He knew what it was like to be treated less, less than, based on the color of one's skin, but didn't seem to give a fuck about anyone being treated, less for being born with a vagina. I used to think when I was younger that those who knew what it felt like to be discriminated against, based on racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, etc., would be less likely to engage in similar behavior themselves. But I have not really found that to be true. I've talked with homosexuals who are transphobic, minorities who are racist towards other minorities, immigrants who are xenophobic or sexist, etc., etc. We're so fucking tribal as a species. So quick to see how others wrong us, but so slow to see how we wrong others. But overall, we're getting better. Right, so that's good. Not every day, not every year, but overall, if you zoom out a decade or two, tracking the evolution of human tolerance is kind of like tracking the stock market, I think. There's years with big highs, years with big lows, but overall, decade to decade, it moves up, it improves. I hope humanity's evolution, continues to do that someday we are far more empathetic and tolerant than we are now, that someday our descendants look back on us, us today and think, what a bunch of dipshits. What a bunch of narrow-minded losers. How could they be so stupid? Why did they worry about that shit? I would love for people to look back at this show and think, nope, yeah, that guy sucks. Not smart enough, not tolerant enough, not good enough, fuck him. Seriously, that'd be great, because that would mean that the world has become so much better than it is right now. So much better that maybe, just maybe, people like Bill Cosby are a thing in the past. I mean, as a student of history, I have a hard time imagining that being true, but I hope it's true someday. America needs a much better dad than that motherfucker. Let's head to the takeaways. Hey!
Timesuck Top 5 Takeaways.
Number 1, in elementary school, Bill Cosby learned he loved to make his classmates laugh and built a reputation as a class clown. He disliked school, dropped out during his junior year of high school. While pursuing higher education, he then decided to drop out of college and pursue a full-time career as a comedian, and it worked out pretty well. Number 2, Cosby experienced tremendous television success with the 1965 premiere of the show I Spy, where he starred alongside a white actor. His fame grew and grew exponentially when he then created and starred in The Cosby Show, a role that secured his reputation as America's dad for many years. Number 3, in 1997, Bill Cosby admitted to having an affair with a woman back in the 70s, whose daughter was attempting to extort him. Cosby claimed he was not the father, and the accuser, Autumn Jackson, later served prison time after she was convicted of extortion, or of attempted extortion. Number 4, in January of 2005, Andrea Constand was the first woman to publicly accuse Bill Cosby of sexual assault. A month later, another woman went public with her accusations, followed by several more. In 2006, Constand filed suit against Cosby and later settled, and the allegations did not have much of an impact on Cosby's career at that time, not until 2014, when a viral clip of comic Hannibal Buress calling Cosby a rapist led to new allegations and a lot of public scrutiny. Number 5, new info. My introduction to Bill Cosby, maybe being kind of an asshole, occurred back in the late 80s when I watched one of my favorite comics growing up, Eddie Murphy, in his 1987 stand-up special, Raw, talking about getting lectured by Bill Cosby. Oh, check this out. It holds up.
Do you watch the Bill Cosby Show? I do too. I love Bill Cosby Show. I've been a big fan of Bill Cosby all my life. Never met the man before, but he called me up about a year ago and chastised me on the phone for being too dirty on stage. And it was real weird because I had never met him, and he just thought he should call me up because he was Bill and tell me that he did about what comedy is all about. And I sat and listened to this man chastise me. And when Bill Cosby chastises you, you forget you grown. You feel like one of the Cosby kids and shit. And I ran in the house all excited to talk to Bill and picked up the telephone, and Bill got raw on me. I was like, hello, Mr. Cosby? And you hear, I would like to talk to you.
He has the best impression.
About some of the things that you do in your show.
So I'm going to jump ahead.
You cannot say filth, filth in front of people. And I said, I never said no filth. He says, you know what I'm talking about. I can't use the type of language that you use, but you know what I mean when I say filth, filth. And I said, I never said no filth. And I don't know what you're talking about. I'm offended that you called. Fuck you. And that's when Bill got pissed and said, that's what I'm talking about. You cannot say fuck in front of people. And I got mad. Because he thought that was my whole act. Like I just walked out on the stage and cursed and left. And I managed to stick in some jokes between the curses. You couldn't give no curse show or walk out and say, hey, felt forum, motherfucker, dick, pussy, snot, and shit. Good night. Good night. Suck my dick. Bye-bye.
I have referenced that so many times over the years when people talk about, like, you know, it's easy to be funny if you're, you know, if you just curse. Like, no, it isn't. What the fuck are you talking about? It's actually, I think, harder because, you know, you're risking offending more people. And just like, yeah, he said there, it's not like you just go out and be like, hey, motherfucker, suck my dick, fuck, shit, cunt, fuck. It's like, no. Man, young Eddie Murphy, maybe the most gifted comic of all time, man. He was like smart, his crisp writing, good impressions. Anyway, Eddie would talk about Cosby numerous times over the years, saying how jealous he was of Eddie's success, how threatened he was by it, that he wasn't like, you know, lifting other, you know, black men up. He was actually kind of like fucking keep them down. And December of 2019, oh man, while Cosby was in prison for sexual assault, what a fun moment for Eddie Murphy. Eddie truly got the last laugh between the two while hosting Saturday Night Live During his monologue, he said, after talking about his 10 kids and how much he devotes his time to them, and he said, quote, if you told me 30 years ago that I'd be this boring stay-at-home house dad and Bill Cosby would be in jail, even I wouldn't have taken that bet. And then after pausing for some applause and laughter, he adds, in that same Cosby impression, I won't even try and attempt, who's America's dad now? Thunderous applause. Well played, Mr. Murphy. Well played.
Timesuck Top 5 Takeaways.
Bill Cosby, America's dad, has been sucked. Thank you to the Timesuck team. Thanks for helping making Timesuck again. Thanks to Queen of Bad Magic, Lindsay Cummins, to Logan Keith, helping to publish this episode, designing merch for the store at badmagicproductions.com. Thank you to Olivia Lee for her initial research again. Also, thanks to the All Seeing Eyes, moderating the Cult of the Curious private Facebook page, the Mod Squad, making sure Discord keeps running smooth, and everyone over on the Timesuck subreddit and Bad Magic subreddit. And now let's head over to this week's Timesucker updates.
Updates? Get your Timesucker updates.
Our first update this week comes from Sharp Sack Dennis McIntosh, who hit me up on Patreon with a correction to last week's Octopus Conspiracy Suck. Last week, I incorrectly stated that the Republicans lost control of the House and Senate in the 1982 elections. No, Republicans lost a bunch of seats in Congress in 82, but the Senate remained virtually unchanged. Republicans would lose a bunch of Senate seats during Reagan's second term in 1986. So sorry about that. The source we leaned on was wrong and may have exaggerated their point to fit the narrative better, and I should have checked. I should have double-checked that. That's on me. Glad we have this space for some retractions. And now to something sweet. Mr. Natural sent in a message to Bojangles at timesuckpodcast.com with the subject line of To Plumpkin from Schmoopy. And here's what they wrote. Hello, my name is Natural. I live in Tacoma in Washington State. My wife Jade and I have been listening to Timesuck and all your podcasts from the time each first episode dropped. Thank you. We constantly reference bits from the shows whenever we're in a good mood or trying to get a laugh out of each other. It would make her day if you could tell her happy birthday sometime around May 22nd. We have a grandson now, Atlas, and her mom, Ivy, is a huge Scared to Death fan. So it is more than likely that 3 generations of the Nash family will all be fans of Bad Magic. Hail Nimrod, Natural. Well, hail Nimrod to you, Mr. Natural. And yes, this is a very, I'm aware, this is a very fucking early birthday wish. Like almost 4 months early. But I have no idea right now what episode I might be dropping in mid-May. And a running to-do list about a mile long. So if I don't do this now, there's a 99% chance, no, there's a 100% chance I'll forget. So happy early as shit birthday, Jade. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Ivy for listening. Congrats on Atlas. Adore the shit out of him. Thanks for the message. And now for something so intense. Awesome, incredibly sweet sucker Jeremiah, I'll leave his last name out, sent in a message with a very alarming subject line of, I was introduced to Timesuck by a serial rapist. He wrote, hi, Dan, Lindsay, and the entire Bad Magic team. So, I mean, based on the subject line, it felt appropriate for this episode. My name is Jeremiah, and I'm a longtime listener. This is my first time writing in. Sorry, not sorry for the girth of this email. I cannot express how much I love what you all are doing. Timesuck especially is one of my favorite things in this crazy world. Started listening back in 2019. The episodes on John Benet Ramsey, Homelessness in America, were the first 2. I was hooked immediately. After a dozen or so random episodes, I decided with all the inside jokes and characters, I should start from the beginning. I highly recommend that. It's been a real joy to follow along with the evolution of the show and so many hilarious long-running jokes and epic storytelling. Oh, thank you. With hundreds of episodes over the years to keep me occupied on long shifts at work or long drives, I listen to every one, some twice. I feel smarter for doing so. You have to love something that makes you laugh and cry. Those Timesucker updates get me in the feel sometimes. I love the in-depth research and how Dan's able to tell these tales, but also make me laugh way too hard sometimes. My coworkers think I'm insane. Look forward to each week, new episodes. Love to hear the updates, joke around with other Timesuckers online. What a wonderful community you all have created out of thin air. You should be very proud. Now to the meat of this email. Yeah, thank you again. This is crazy. Last May, I listened to episode 401 about that sicko Kenneth McDuff. And in that episode, you made a joke about wishing you had a magic button that killed all pedos, and then you mused about how many of your listeners would disappear. I knew that I needed to tell you this story. As I said, I started listening to Timesuck back in 2019. At the time, I was working for a restaurant supply company in Boulder, Colorado. I was in sales, and in March of 2019, this guy named Trevor joined our team. He sat right next to me. We quickly learned that we shared a dark sense of humor. We talked about comedy a lot. One day he asked me if I'd ever heard of Dan Cummins. To my surprise, I had not. He sent me the video of me on This Is Not Happening. I was off to the races. How had I never heard of this guy? So the next day at work, Trevor and I are talking, and he said, I figured you'd like his sense of humor. And that's when our other coworker piped up from the end cubicle and asked, have you guys ever heard of Timesuck? We both said, no, what's that? And this guy, Andrew, told us it was your podcast. On a disc golf trip that weekend, we checked out the 2 episodes I mentioned at the beginning of the email. The rest is history. Since then, I've become close with Trevor and his family, and Timesuck has been a big part of our friendship. We're lucky enough to catch you at Comedy Works in Denver a couple years back. As for Andrew, the guy who turned us on to Timesuck, during the pandemic, I quit working at the restaurant supply company. And other than Trevor, I didn't keep up with many people there. In the spring of 2022, Andrew hit me up via Facebook, suggested we get together to watch our 2 hockey teams play in the first round of the NHL playoffs and catch up. He came to my apartment, we enjoyed the game, had some pizza, talked about work. He ended up being the top salesman at this company for several years. After my Lightning beat his Maple Leafs, he left, and I never saw him again. 2 weeks later, another friend who had worked with us texted me, what's up with Andrew? I said I didn't know. And what do you mean? And he sent me an article stating that the Longmont police were searching for him and that he was on the run. The charges against him were human trafficking, sexual exploitation of a child, and child prostitution. I was blown away. This was a normal guy as far as I knew. He was a little off, but I always thought it was just because he was Canadian. I shared the article with Trevor. We've been baffled ever since. We have so many questions. This guy's never been caught. He fled Colorado. They found his abandoned Jeep in Moab, Utah. We've been searching for answers. We finally received some when John Walsh did a story about him on season 5, episode 2 of his show In Pursuit with John Walsh. As it turns out, Andrew was a serial rapist who was using Snapchat to prey on and eventually rape several girls as young as 14. He was in his late 30s at the time. I have no idea if he's dead or alive now. All I know is that he had a lot of people fooled. You just never know what the people around you are up to in the shadows. Anyway, this is a story of how I was turned on to Timesuck. Best podcast ever. 3 out of 5 stars. Wouldn't change a thing. Keep up the great work. And for some reason, if this makes it to the air, please give a shout out to my good friend Trevor Nelson. He's a great guy. Even better friend. Take care. Hope to see you all at summer camp. P.S. Did you know that Triple M co-wrote the Van Halen song I'll Wait with Eddie Van Halen? Holy shit. Thank you for all the kind words. And that's fucking insane. God, why would you ever listen to a show where the host constantly talks about wishing fucking death on pedophiles if you're a pedophile? Like, seriously, what the fuck? Why? Why would you recommend that show? I mean, I guess if you're just, trying to like show that you're not or prove to people that you're not. Oh, man. And these motherfuckers, they blend in so well. You would never know what they do when you're not around. Kind of like Bill Cosby. Man, I can't think about how secretive some people can be too long. It starts to make me feel just paranoid and insane. And Andrew Rosa. Oh, sorry. And yes, Trevor. Thanks. Trevor Nelson. Thanks for being a good friend. Thanks for not also being a rapist. I hope you're not. And Andrew Rosa is the guy's full name. He has not been caught. He is still wanted. Last seen in southern Utah, driving a silver-colored 2008 Subaru station wagon in late 2022. Colorado license plate number OPR 948. White male, 6'1", 215 pounds, blue eyes, brown hair. Born December 11th, 1987. If you have info on this son of a bitch, send an email to warrants@dcsheriff.net or call the Douglas County Sheriff's Office warrant tip hotline, 303-660-7574, and you can remain anonymous. And finally, on a lighter note, I did not know about that Van Halen song, Jeremiah. Thank you. Yeah, according to Wikipedia, I'll Wait, written as a collaboration between Van Halen and Michael McDonald, who was brought in by producer Ted Templeman when David Lee Roth was having trouble completing the melody. And the band was having trouble completing the lyrics to the song. Fuck yeah, man. Hail Triple M. If I find out he's a sexual predator, I'm going to fucking shut the show down. It's going to break me. Please be good, Michael. Thank you for the messages, everybody.
Thanks, time suckers. I needed that.
We all did. Well, thank you for listening to another Bad Magic Productions podcast. Scared to Death Timesuck each week. Short Sucks and Nightmare Fuel on the Timesuck and Scared to Death podcast feeds twice a month on Fridays. Don't spike anybody's drink this week or ever. It's a really shitty way to keep on sucking.
Bad Magic Productions.
And now a little taste of a very different side of Michael motherfucking McDonald. an unstoppable force in the 80s. Oh, all hail Triple M.